episode 118 of Coffee and Co-Read, your source for all things literary with Kristen
and Catherine, where we believe there's nothing better than a hot coffee and an awesome book. Join us for our virtual book club, where we take one book a month and dive into all of the drama, adventure, and romance we can find. Hey, Kristen.
Hi, Catherine.
So this is our last week with, I don't have the book near me, but A Court of Silver Flames. I'm just, looking around for the book.
I'm looking at mine from, across the room. I can see it on my bookshelf in all of its bright orange glory.
It is so bright. That's not even what we're talking about today, but I'm especially since, my other 3 books, I have the, cartoon girl covers.
Yeah.
So this book is, such a standout because it looks so different. I also, my Silver Flames is, the bright blue one that's of the orange ones. No. What is Frost and Starlight? My Frost and Starlight, sorry. Yeah.
I was so confused.
Yes.
It's really funny too because so many books, fantasy books, YA books, all that sort of thing, they go naturally for really dark covers.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I'm literally looking at my bookshelf right now and it's all dark colors, and then it's these 4 books that are whoopah.
Yeah. I almost want to get the newer covers of the OG3 series because I'm it doesn't match. I need, and then I wouldn't feel so bad lending them out either because they're easily replaceable.
I do have.
Yeah.
I had
fair.
to.
It's just also funny because, I think we talked about it being NA last week and stuff too, but it's the first new adult book, a bit darker, a bit spicier, a bit everythinger, and it's completely opposite of Nesta's personality is this bright fucking orange color.
Yeah.
Neon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, that wasn't what we were planning to talk about, but we actually, since we're finishing the book, just wanted to have a small chat about who we think the next book might be about. I think when this book came out, I believe, I never saw where it was said, but I heard people chatter about it on Instagram and TikTok and stuff, about how Sarah J. Maas said that once you finish this book, it would be obvious who the next book was about. And I don't think it is. If we're going similar to this book, is it just going to be 2 points of view? And how does that look? Are we going to get a Lane and Lucian point of view book? Because this book didn't really make me think that, because Lucian's barely in it and Elaine is kind of barely in it.
I wonder, actually, I have an idea. Yeah, no, I have an idea.
Mm-hmm.
I have a thought.
I would like to hear it.
I think it's going to be an Eris and Moore thing. Not them together. I don't think they're going to be together.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be them.
Moore was so absent this book. I can't imagine that, she's going to get her book next. And I also am kind of I feel like Sarah J. Maas would want to finish The Sisters. So I wouldn't be surprised if Elaine is next. But, I can't imagine, maybe it would be Elaine and Asriel. As the 2 people, not saying they'll end up together. But maybe they do end up together. I have no idea what the fuck's gonna happen with all that.
Yeah, I don't know.
I would love an Eris and Moore book, though. That would be
yes,
that's what I want.
But so part of the reason why I feel like it's going to be an Eris and Moore story is because of all the hinting that we don't know the story.
True.
Right?
Yes.
Because Eris keeps saying, ask Moore, she knows, or I'm not going to tell you, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I feel like the way they leave off the relationship with Eris, I feel like there's nowhere to go with it except for
Yeah.
his, like, learning the truth.
That's a good point.
And that figures into the ending as well. Because it is one of our sort of in the last, like, few pages, there is a checkup on Eris and a reminder that we don't know the whole story.
Yeah. And, like, it does, not to, like, get spoilery for this week, although I assume you've read the book if you're listening to this week of the podcast. But, like, they end off talking to Eris, and Cassian's like, you could be a good man if you weren't such an asshole. So, like, yeah, I could see that. I just kind of feel like she would want to finish the sisters, and I am, like, I don't care about Elaine right now, and
But you want to? Yeah.
Because, like, I'm like, there has to be more in her head than this. And, like, there are so many... See, this is the issue with the books taking so long, too. It's the kind of the thing I think that happened with Crescent City 3, is people go crazy on their theories, and then nothing's ever going to live up to what you're expecting. So, like, people are gone crazy about Elaine, and, like, I've even seen some theories that she's Valg. And I'm like, I don't think she's going to just be evil, but, like, I get, like, in this book she's a bit sneakier, and she's, like, got a bit of a backbone, but, like, I can't imagine she's going to just go full-blown evil. But who knows? Who knows?
Yeah,
There was also, in the, like, extra bonus chapter things, there's a chapter with Asriel, where he has a necklace, and he tries to give it to, Alid? That's not her name. What is her name? Why did I just blank? The third sister. What is the third sister's name?
Elaine?
Elaine, thank you. I was just like, Alid. Nope. Anyway, and I was just talking about her. Literally dying here. Yeah, so there's a bonus chapter that is Asriel trying to give Elaine a necklace. And I don't remember it completely, but does, like, she try to kiss him or something? Or he tries to kiss her?
No, I didn't even think it got that far. Because he didn't give her the necklace.
I thought he, like, offered it to her, and she was like, I can't take this.
I don't think so. Because I think Rhys, and I think this is another reason people are on the Rhys hate train. Because Rhys tells Az, like, don't even think about it, stay away from her. So he drops the necklace off at the
library.
At the library instead.
Yeah, for Gwen.
But he doesn't give it to Gwen, does he? I don't really remember.
He doesn't physically give it to her, but he leaves it there for Gwen.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, we clearly haven't read it in a while since the book came out, but we're just pasting it together. But the part that I kind of... It was our first shot in Asriel's head ever, I think.
Yes.
And he went to talk to Rhys after, and he kind of was, like, implying that he deserves Elaine because she's the third sister and he's the third of them. So, like, he feels some entitlement to her.
Yeah.
Is kind of the read that I got after reading it. And I was like, it's yeah, it was weird. And then it kind of made me realize we've never been in Asriel's head, and we really don't know anything about him other than he's like shadow daddy, and people love that. So I'm like, I don't know about him. So I was kind of thinking there might be something about him in the next book based off of that chapter. But it's so hard to know. Obviously, we're going to read whatever she writes, but...
Yes, we will.
You know.
We are simps for S.J. Maas.
So much so. So much so. So yeah, obviously, especially based off that, just a heads up, this is not a spoiler-free zone.
Obviously.
Things might get saucy. Oh, it's me, isn't it, I think?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck. Okay, so we're doing our last week with A Court of Silver Flames, chapters 59 to 80. And last week, What happened last week? Last week ended up like super chill, super happy. It was right after, I guess, Nesta kind of had her breakthrough moment of like healing, and then she goes to the, it's not Christmas. What is it called? Yulemas, thank you. She goes to the Yulemas party and actually has like a pretty decent night. She talks to people, like she gets a few gifts. Asriel gives her a really thoughtful gift. And then at the end of the night, her and Cassian like they have a bit of a fight, but then they decide that like they're never going to be with anybody else. And she lets her walls down while they're together, and like there's a lot of imagery in the book that makes it seem like she's accepting a mating bond in this moment when they're having sex / making love, as she calls it. So that's how it ends, and he actually stays and holds her while she sleeps, which is a first for them. So it's actually like it ended super cute, and you're like 4/5 of the way through the book, and you're like, holy shit, this is it. They're doing it. They're together.
Yeah.
So then, of course, this week has to start with a complete fucking disaster. So it's Nesta's point of view, and she wakes up and she's warm and content, and Cassian wakes up next to her, and they, of course, just immediately have sex again. But then, like, immediately after the sex, like, he doesn't even... so gross. He doesn't even let his dick dry.
Ew!
Sorry, it's just the only thing I could think of. He, like, looks at the clock and then starts rushing around to pull on his pants and, like, get his clothes on. And she's just like, what the fuck is going on? And he's like, snowball fight with Reese and Az. And he says he'll be late getting back. And she just sits up and she just, like, is very seductive and hopes that he'll just brush it off and, like, get back in bed with her. But it kind of seems like he, like, thinks about it for a second. But then he's just like, I'm going to be gone for a few days checking on legions. And then he leaves the room without even giving her a kiss. And she's just like, what the fuck is going on? So it's a very abrupt turn and kind of a shitty thing to do.
Yeah.
So Cassian is gone for 3 days without any word to her, and she kind of feels like she's going mad. She, like, needs him. Like, she had just let her guard down with him and, like, kind of accepted-ish, it seems like, physically that they are mates. So she's like, what the fuck is going on? So she invites Emery and Gwyn to stay at the house, and Emery is immediately like, I get why this is. It's because Cass isn't here and you're losing your mind. So I kind of love Emery for that. So Emery and Nesta are actually in the library in the House of Wind, and they're waiting for Gwyn to show up. And Emery says that Cassian must be really good at sex if she's this tied up about him. And Emery also says he, like, has the good sex walk. Like, you can tell when a male walks if he's going to be good or not. And I'm like, we don't need to, like, blow any more smoke up Cassian's side. Like, he's already... I think he's got this.
Yep.
Then Gwyn shows up, and she, like, looks around at the library and says, like, Nesta didn't have to go through all of this trouble. And Nesta kind of thinks of, like, the house actually set up some cots in the library for them, and there's, like, tons of chocolates and treats. And Emery actually...
Can I be honest and say this is, like, one of my other favorite scenes in this entire book is, like, them having a little slumber party. It's so cute. So much. I love it so much. This is, like, if there was a movie or a TV show, this is, like, something that I would love to see. Yeah.
It'd be so good. So Emery actually explains that the house did it, and it wasn't Nesta. And then she asks for pistachio cake, and one just appears. And Nesta explains that she, like, bonded with the house over books. And then Gwyn is like, what does that even mean? Because, like...
it's a house.
Houses can't read. But they can here. So Gwen actually asks the house for a book then too. Well, she asks for the house's favorite book, and then one thumps beside her. We do a tiny time jump here, and the girls are in tubs that are just full of bubbles, and they like each have a tub in the library, and they're fully clothed, and they're just like bubbles in the tubs, and there's miniature ducks in the bubbles, and there's like a bunch of ridiculous wishes around them in the room, including like a miniature Pegasus. And Nesta kind of feels a tiny bit like she's taking advantage of the house. Like she doesn't really want to ask for too much, which I think is kind of showing of her growth in this book. So, but sure. Obviously the other girls are like, holy shit, it's a magic house, and losing their shit, like you would be. Like I don't blame them for doing that either.
No.
And then they kind of get a bit serious. So Gwen actually admits that she wonders if she'll ever be able to leave the library, and Nesta just like explains to her that she kind of feels the same way now. Like she's kind of afraid to leave the House of Wind, because like obviously she has done all this growth and stuff, but like is she just gonna slip back when she goes back out into the real world? She's kind of worried about like that kind of stuff, and like
of course
even how to exist in the real world anymore. And then Gwen actually takes out like bracelet making supplies and says that she used to make them with her sister and fill them with wishes for each other. And they believed the wishes would come true when they fall, like when the bracelets fall off, which I think is a common thing.
Yeah.
And I just love making friendship bracelets. So fun. Emery asks Gwen about her sister, because we don't have a whole lot of information on her, and Gwen says her name was Katrin, and they were fraternal twins, so they didn't really look like each other. And Gwen loved her dearly and misses her every day, and she just wishes she had one more day with her. And she kind of says like none of the differences between them and none of the fightings between them matters anymore. She just wishes she had more time. And it actually makes Nesta think of her sisters, and she wonders if, like, maybe they're not unique. Maybe all sisters have differences and fight and shit. And, like, I kind of get it, because, like, obviously she's been a bit, like, she hasn't seen healthy relationships, I guess, of sisters around, and to realize that, like, I don't know. But it is just kind of funny. She's like, oh, it's not just us like this. But I think it's kind of a turning point for Nesta to be like, maybe I should start caring more about my sisters in case somebody fucking dies, like Feyre's supposed to. So they start picking colors for each other. Gwen picks green, purple, and gold for Emery. Nesta chooses blue, white, and teal for Gwen. And Emery picks navy, blue, crimson, and silver for Nesta. And they make the bracelets. Nesta actually takes the charms and holds them in her hand, and she wishes for them to have the courage to go out into the world when they're ready and to always be able to find each other. And, like, the charms, I guess, are little coins, and they glow faintly when she makes this, like, wish on them. So I'm sure that'll not do something to them. So yeah, that's gonna be something soon. Yeah. We actually go to Cassian's point of view now, and he's been gone for 5 days, and he's just been checking all of the Illyrian camps. And I guess after he's done that, he shows up at training, which I guess he just left Az to train everybody. He was just like, I need to run away. It's all on you now. But he shows up, and I guess, like, training's already in progress, but Gwen is actually, like, squaring off with the ribbon. And he hears her say that she is the rock against which the surf crashes, and nothing can break her. And Emery responds, nothing can break us. Aww. And I know, I love it. And Cassian feels like he thinks a shift in the world after that, and then Gwen cuts the ribbon. And Nesta picks the piece that, like, cut the ribbon in two, a piece fell. She picks that piece up and ties it around Gwen's head and, like, anoints her a Valkyrie. We go over to Nesta's point of view now, and both she and Emery also cut the ribbon that day, and like one of the other two took the piece, put it around their head, and anointed them, declared them Valkyries too.
Yay!
So yeah, they're progressing, they're doing well. Obviously Nesta realizes that Cassian's there, and she just wants to immediately jump him after training. But he disappears. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And he doesn't come back until the next morning. So she doesn't see him again until she goes to training. And the training ring is actually transformed into an obstacle course. And Cassian tells them Valkyries were fearless and brilliant warriors, but their true strength was being a unit. And he says they'll need to work in threes to get through this obstacle course. I'm like, of course it's 3.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Gwyn asks, like, what is the prize going to be once we finish it? And Az just tells her that they didn't get one because they won't finish it. And Gwyn is just like, says she looks forward to proving them wrong. And there's a lot of tension there that is, like, very, like, Az and Gwyn coded. Like...
Yeah.
The, like banter.
And she keeps, like, looking at him when she maybe thinks he's not looking, and, like, sort of, like, I don't know if it's longing, like longing, and we don't have her story yet, like,
yes, what
happened to her, but she sort of, I think, like, idolizes him maybe in some way.
Yeah, that's a good word. Yeah, there's some tension there, whether it be sexual or anything else. There's something. So they only make it halfway through the obstacle course in 3 hours, but they're determined to keep trying. And Gwyn says, "See you tomorrow, Shadow Singer," to Az. And then Nesta looks at him and says, like, for Gwyn now, he's the new ribbon. Like, he's the new fixation that she has. And you're just like, okay, we're spelling it out here. Like, there's clearly, I don't know. Like, something. I honestly, I know whatever SJM writes is going to be good, but I don't have any hopes or wishes of who Az ends up with. Like, I just want him to be happy. I don't know. I don't really care who he ends up with. Yeah, so we kind of do a bit of a time jump So, like, 2 months passes, and we get, like, each morning the obstacle course is different, but it always starts kind of the same. So there's always footwork, and then puzzles, and then strength. So in the first 2 weeks, they had made it to the strength part once, and they try these obstacle courses for 1 hour every day. Rosalind, Deidre, and Ananke are...
Yeah, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Anank.
I have no idea. At all. Are like, so they're doing it together as well, and they're kind of like getting close to our girls, so they start training even harder. And then those 3 actually cut the ribbon as well, and so do Alana and Lorelai. So some more of the priestesses are becoming Valkyries. But Gwyn is super determined that the 3 of them, her, Emery, and Nesta, will finish first. For these 2 months too, Nesta runs the stairs each night, but she hasn't made it to the bottom yet, or again. And I guess at the 2-month mark, none of the other priestesses have come to train that day. It's just the 3 girls there, and Cass and Az, and they actually make it through the obstacle course. And I'm kind of like, it's kind of sad that the day they beat it, nobody else is there. But Gwyn told the other two girls that they were all at a ceremony and that she wanted to do training instead. But that's not the real reason. So Gwyn goes over to Az kind of expectantly because she's like, we finished it. We win. Where's our prize? And he says they already have their prize. They passed the bloodrite qualifier. So this obstacle course, I guess it's different every day, but it's got all the same components each time. But it's actually like how you would qualify to do the bloodrite.
Yeah, even the dude, well, I say even, all the male Illyrians have to do this sort of obstacle course to qualify for the rite.
Yeah. And we get the real reason why none of the other priestesses showed up. Lord Devlin and another male are actually there watching them. So that's interesting. Emery kind of blanches and she's just like, we aren't entering though, are we? And Cassian says, only if you want to. And he says, like, he brought Devlin there so that he would realize that, like, these women are just as talented as any Illyrian. And, like, I just don't think it, like, I kind of get what he's doing, but I think it would have meant more to them if the other priestesses were there to share it with them instead of having these guys that hate them show up to be like, see, they can do it too. I'm like, what? I don't know. I get his intention, but I don't think it makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah. Nesta thinks like she has one more test now to do. It's later, and she's on the stairs. And this was like a good portion of the book that were just like, hey, we skipped 2 months, and you're like, so what's going on with her and Cassian? Because he had just disappeared, and we like got all of this information.
I know, and then he just came back, and it's like, okay, it's fine.
Yeah, and I was like, so are they just ignoring each other for 2 months? I was like, what the fuck is going on? But while she's running down the stairs, she starts thinking of Cassian and how they alternate rooms and they make love at night or early morning and they fuck any chance they get. So, like, I'm like, okay, cool. At least they're having sex, I guess. They're not ignoring each other.
Right.
They're sleeping together in each other's rooms, so. She also goes to the library church services each night, and she sings the songs now, and she feels like she's living and that she's actually like happy, which is obviously new for her.
Yeah.
She also has been practicing mind stilling, so she mind stills as she goes down, and she thinks like she is the master of herself now, and this person she's becoming she might even like, which is obviously super different from the beginning of the book. And she actually gets to the bottom and the door opens, but she stands there and she decides that she would rather go back up because Cassian is waiting for her and they're having the Starfall party up there in like an hour. So she needs to go back up these 10,000 steps and go to the party. I'm like, why did you decide to do this right now?
I know, because she's definitely going to be sweaty doing 10,000 stairs. Both down and up, so that's really 20,000 stairs. So she's going to get back up, and she's going to be sweaty and gross, and she's just going to go to this party after training all morning. She's going to stink. Yeah. Unless Fae don't stink.
Oh, interesting.
Maybe they don't have sweat glands, so they...
No, they do, because remember the Eris's soldiers in the swamp, Cassian and Azrael were like, it smells like they haven't bathed in days.
Oh, okay.
Or weeks. So they must smell.
So she's gonna stink.
100%. So she gets to the top, and Cassian is like waiting there, and she kisses him, and the party is already underway, because obviously it takes longer than an hour to walk up 10,000 steps. And he actually carries her up more steps to get her to the party. So she doesn't go change, she doesn't go shower, she goes immediately to the party, and I'm just like, eh. Starfall is kind of underway, and she like watches the stars, and she's transfixed by them, and like everybody is there, plus Helion and Callius. Anyway, yeah, and Vivian we met at the High Lords meeting, is actually pregnant, so that's cute. Yeah, she's gonna have a little baby that's around the same age as Feyre's if Feyre doesn't die.
They were also like a friends to lovers trope.
Yes. Which, like, I would like to get their story. Like, it sounds cute.
It would be cute.
But we can't go into the past. There's, like, too much for Sarah J. Maas to write. We can't be asking her to write.
Don't do it.
Yeah. So Nesta actually, like, watching the stars, cries at the beauty and laughs. And then, like, Amren shows up and says she never thought she'd hear that from Nesta. And you're just like, this is kind of bitchy. Like, you never thought you'd hear her laugh. Okay. But Nesta actually turns to Amren and she falls to her knees and she says she's sorry and she can't bear losing Amren's friendship. Amren kind of dodges it a bit, and she just says that she looked around the house and Nesta made it come to life. And she asks Nesta what she wished for when she first came to this house. And Nesta really thinks about it and realizes, like, when she first showed up, she was lonely, and she says she just wanted a friend. So the house became that for her because it was what she needed. So yeah, so like she's the one that created the house into what it is now, which I love.
Yeah.
Nesta then says, like, that doesn't really make sense though, because she can't create something that is good. Like, she's only created these weapons and like she's afraid of her power, so she's like, I couldn't have created the house. It's good. And Amren asks, like, is the house actually good? And Nesta kind of thinks about it. And she remembers the darkness in the house. And she says, like, she accepted the house's darkness. And Amren says, like, that's the key. The struggle is all worth it to be able to accept the darkness and kind of, like... She's kind of saying, like, you need to accept the darkness in yourself and move on, it kind of feels like.
I will say that I'm not crazy about that message. Like... instead of being like, I can't make anything good. Are you sure the house is good? Like,
yeah.
Instead of being like that, be like, well, no, like, you have the capacity for both. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, it should be all about intention and assuring her that you can do what you want. Like, your power isn't something to be afraid of. Instead of being like, I can't make anything good. Are you sure the house is good? Like, are you sure you made something good? Or is it actually just bad and you've just learned to live with it? You know what I mean? Like,
I do get what you're saying, but I think the, like, implication is the house is a metaphor for her, and she thinks everything and everyone other than her is good, and she thinks that she is bad and cannot accept herself, cannot be loved. So I think it's more like as a metaphor of, like, you can accept the house and it has duality. You can accept yourself, kind of thing. Like, I think that's what she's getting at. But I do agree with you, being like, are you sure that you made a good house? Because the house is a piece of shit, just like you. Is it really? It's not really the nicest way to put it.
No, it's not helpful at all.
And yeah, it's only going to make her more afraid of her magic. So I do get what you're saying, but I also get where Amren's coming from, but yeah, it's not the best. But yeah, Amren's kind of saying, like, the struggle is worth it, and Nesta looks at Cassian, and Amren says, it's worth it for that too. And you're like, ooh, when are they going to get together? And then we do another time jump, and it's spring. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? There have been no attacks from, like, the big bads in this book, and they can't get too close to Briallen's castle because they don't know, like, how far away the crown needs to be to work on somebody. So they really don't know much of anything. And we also hear that a rare red star blasted through the sky and rattled the priestesses and Rhys. And if you've read Throne of Glass, you know that wasn't a star.
Woo!
My fave. Love it. Amazing.
Can I just say that I find it really, really funny that, like, so Kingdom of Ash came out in, I think, 2018.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been out for a long time.
Yeah.
Right? And, like, I appreciate people are just finding the series and they're just reading them. But I find it really funny when people are still, like, posting in the Facebook groups, like, oh my god, was that Aelin?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like,
me too.
No shit.
And, like, they're, like, posting from Kingdom of Ash, like, is this about Rhys and Feyre? And you're like, yeah. So, yeah. Spoiler alert. But I kind of found it weird the first time I read this, because I was like, that moment in Kingdom of Ash, and if you haven't read Throne of Glass, maybe skip ahead a bit. So that moment in Kingdom of Ash, Rhys, like, slows Aelin down and helps her.
Yeah.
And then she's able to get back to her body, her world, kind of thing.
Yep.
I love that moment. And then we go to this book, and Rhys is like, bad omen, holy shit, everything's awful. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, yeah. I thought that he realized, I don't know.
Yeah, you thought he realized what was happening and that maybe he was, like, helping her.
Yeah. And I thought, like, the intention was good. And, like, I don't know. It was just weird to read it in this book and him be, like, rattled by it and worried. Even though, like, that is kind of where he is in this book, so I get it. Because, like, he's worried that they're all gonna die. But yeah, it was just interesting to go from, like, Kingdom of Ash, where you were like, yeah, that's a great Easter egg, to this one then being like, Aelin's fucking scary. Which is true. But yeah, I liked that little pop-out. So, Feyre is due in 2 months, and there's no plan of how to have a baby without killing her. So that's fun.
Just let her fucking shift!
I can't. I cannot. So the Valkyries are still training as a unit, and Nesta is wondering if, like, the priestesses will ever leave and actually battle, and how, like, battle would affect everybody. And she thinks about the bloodrite. It's actually in 2 days, and she wonders if the bloodrite was kind of set up to introduce Illyrians to killing in a contained environment that would, like, kind of ease them into it, instead of, like, just throwing everybody into a war and them getting PTSD. Even though, like, the bloodrite doesn't seem like it's much better, but okay. She gets a letter to meet Eris in the middle, and she and Cassian go to meet him, and she actually sees the mountain of Under the Mountain that she has heard about from Feyre, obviously, the entire first book.
Yeah. And
Eris kind of explains that there are 3 mountains that are, like, kind of similar. There's this mountain, Under the Mountain, the prison, and then Ramiel, which is the Illyrian mountain. And he says, like, they don't know why they exist, but 2 of the 3 mountains actually have, like, palaces under them. And he kind of implies that he wonders what's under Ramiel. But he also says, like, I know, I'm like, this is obviously going to be something. Like, this is something.
Yeah.
But because Ramiel's, like, a sacred mountain and they're only allowed to go there during the bloodrite, nobody's ever checked if there's anything under there. And I actually thought that, like, this might come up in this book, because we do see Ramiel again in this book.
Yeah. It's a good... And I'll be fair, I totally, like, I read this, but I didn't think much of it until you are pointing it out. I'm like, oh my god, that's so true. I wonder what's under there.
Especially since we... Sorry.
No, but, like, we know this about SJM. She's not putting something in unless she's gonna revisit. So, like, Obviously, this is something.
Yes, and, like, in recenter books, we've heard more about the prison mountain. So, like, there's more here, and we need to know about it.
We just need to know everything.
100%. So they actually get down to, like, why they're there, because this is just, like, a tidbit of information that SJM threw in for us. But Eris says that his father went to the continent to speak with Briallen, and he thinks that the fallout will be soon, and he says, basically, they're just waiting for her to find the harp now. And she just blinks at him, and he realizes that they already have it. And I'm like, why are none of you better at lying? Like...
Yeah.
But they also realized they just forgot to tell him. Like, they didn't even mean to not tell him. They just, like, forgot to, so...
Yeah, 3 months later, they forgot.
Yeah. And he kind of takes it badly, and he's like, thinks they didn't tell him for, like, malicious reasons, that, like, they're gonna try to get the crown now and then use all three and, like, I don't know what he thinks they're gonna do, but turn on him probably. And Cassian tries to explain that, like, they don't plan to use them, but Eris is just, like, doesn't believe them. And Nesta is actually, like, just turned on by Cassian being a courtier and actually being good at it. And I'm like, I don't think this is the time. Like, what?
But like, keep it in your pants for just 2 minutes.
Right? Eris actually says, like, he doesn't think they should go after the crown because, like, if they're found out, Briallen could, like, turn them against themselves with the crown, obviously. But then, like, Briallen would find out about Eris being on their side, and then his father would find out, which would obviously be awful for him. And obviously, everything for him kind of comes back to this. He's just really worried that his father is going to find out. So, like, it is selfish, but it's also, like, of course he's selfish. Like, why wouldn't he be in this moment? He then asks Nesta about his offer for her, so marriage. And she notes, like, the lack of affection when he says it. And he says, like, she just says, like, once they have the crown, they won't need him, and neither will she. And I'm like, why did we make him want her? Like, what was the end game here?
Yeah.
For her just to be, like, a dick to him? Like, I just don't really... It pisses me off. Like, and was it just to show Nesta can dance? Like...
Well, and then, too, like, it's... Her reaction... Like, this is not the time to be goading him. He is an ally, so, like, saying...
And he's already...
Yeah, he's already wishy-washy. He's already on the fence after they've, like, revealed that they had something and didn't tell him. And now she's like, dude, I don't need you. Like, it's just a little bit of, like, a slap in the face to somebody that they've been trying to keep close as an ally. But also, why bother keeping him as an ally in the first place? When you have, like, literally 5 of 7 courts are united... Why does it matter if one court is out of... Like, why? Why are they trying so hard with Eris in the first place?
For this tiny, tiny bit of information that his father went and they're going to make a move soon. Like, we already know that. Of course they're going to make a move soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't get it. And, like... Nesta the entire time has been like, I'm gonna leave it up to Rhys. Like, obviously he knows what he's doing. And now she's just like, fuck you, I hate you, you're never gonna have me. And now he's obviously gonna be, like, jaded after this. Dumb.
Yeah, I agree.
So they bicker a bit more and then they fly away. Nesta actually tells Cassian that he did well, and he says he was pretending to be her. Which I just love. So they fly back, and he actually takes her to the city, and, like, he lands by the Sidra, and they walk together, and they hold hands, and they kiss. And Nesta's a bit wary, because she's like, there are people around, but Cassian says he wants everybody to know that they're together. And she asks if it undermines her as a warrior to be with him, and he's kind of like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, do you think it undermines Feyre to be with Rhys? And she says, yeah, but that's different. And he's like, why is it different? And Nesta says it's different because they're mates. So Feyre and Rhys are mates, so it's different. And he's like, and we're not mates? And she just says the word means nothing to her. And he's just like, what spooked you? And she thinks, like, leaving the house is what it is, but she doesn't say that to him. She doesn't explain how she's feeling or anything.
Like, what? Just, like, what? Like, going... I don't know, what do you mean? Like, just the fact that they left the house?
Just that, I guess, that she's in the streets. Like, no. That she's in the streets now, and, like, this is kind of what she was worried about, like, going back to the regular life. And she's like, yeah, I think she's worried about who she is if she's, like, only going to be Cassian's, what would you even call her? Like, girlfriend, if that's all she's going to be seen as, if she's not going to be taken seriously as a warrior kind of thing.
Right.
if people see them together.
Well, and then too, like, she's definitely still holding on to, I am not good enough to, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
those are still, like, just because you admit that doesn't mean that those feelings go away.
exactly.
So, like, you know, I'm sure she's still battling with, like, they're out in public, people are gonna see them together, and I guess she is probably worried that people are gonna be like, ugh, like, why is he with her? Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Like, she's an awful person.
And, like, everybody loves Cassian. He's, like, a celebrity. He's, like, he's saved so many people. Like, he's, like, yeah.
And he's a good-natured dude, right? Like, yeah, if you piss him off, he can get, like, scary. But in general, he's here for a good time. He's here to joke around. Like, people like him.
Exactly. So, like, people don't like her.
Yes.
And I don't think that, like, just accepting herself is going to change that. Like, I think she's still going to be a prickly person because that's just her personality. Like, I wouldn't, but I think that's where she's got a lot of fear right now. But he just gets pissed and he says this is why he left her for a week, to give her space, to realize that, like, they belong together kind of thing. And he, like, they're in the middle of a fucking street, but he's just, like, is kind of, like, raising his voice and saying, and telling her to say it, that they're mates, but she refuses. And he says, like, he basically says he knew since first time they met. And then he yells, he's her mate, for fuck's sake, and asks why she's fighting it. And he says, like, she promised him forever on Solstice, so why fight it now? Like, why is she so against it at this moment? And she says it takes her humanity away to be his mate. Like, she didn't have a choice in becoming a fae. And he says he didn't have a choice being shackled to her either. And immediately he's like, shit, that was the wrong word to say and the wrong way to say it. And he tries to backpedal, but she just says, like, it's all true. And his friends must have told him multiple times to, like, stay away from her because she's such a bitch. Yeah. And then she says that she's going to call in her favor and that he needs to leave her alone until she's ready to talk to him or until a week passes, and that he needs to go back to the House of Wind for the night. So he flies away. Moore shows up, so we're assuming Cassian sent Moore back to get Nesta, so she didn't have to walk up 10,000 stairs.
Yeah.
And actually brings Nesta to Emery's house, which is sweet. And Nesta just, like, collapses and cries, and she, like, explains to Emery, like, what's going on. And Gwyn shows up an hour later. Moore brings her there, too. And everybody, including Gwyn, is shocked that Gwyn has left the library, which is kind of cute.
But it also just shows, like, how much these friends have grown together in, like, the past few months. Is, like, she is willing to brave the, you know, the outside world, even though she was like, I don't know if I'll ever be ready to leave the library, but she's leaving because Nesta is upset. Yeah,
it's very sweet. So they stay up late talking, and then they all go to bed. There's 3 bedrooms upstairs, and Nesta thinks to herself as she's falling asleep that, like, tomorrow she's going to apologize to Cassian, and her life will begin again, and she'll take it one day at a time. And she's, like, got some hope as she's going to sleep. But, of course, she wakes up to, like, a hateful male scent, and then she hears Emery scream and then be silenced, and then she's basically chloroformed, is what we gather.
Yeah.
We go to Cassian's point of view, and he thinks, like, Nesta didn't word her bargain very well, and he's gonna have to teach her how to do that, because he only had to go to the House of Wind for one night, and now he's like, now I'm just gonna go stand in front of her until she's willing to talk to me. Because
But I thought in her bargain she said, you need to leave me alone until I'm ready to talk to you.
Yeah, so his plan is just to, he can't talk to her until she talks to him. But she, like, if he's gonna stand there until she says a word to him, and then he can talk to her.
Oh, okay.
So, like, it's just silly, but I love it.
I'm actually, like, not gonna lie. I'm surprised he, like, I understand that they're mates, so that's why he's so, like, I need to, but, like, I'm just a little surprised that he is so willing to approach her. Like, she was, like,
mad.
Not admitting that they're mates must have been very hurtful for him.
Yes.
So I'm just surprised that he's like, all right, I'm going to get her right away, instead of being like, is this something that I want?
Yes. I think his thing is he feels bad for using the word shackled, and he's like, he wants to apologize and, like, actually have a conversation with her about what she's so afraid of.
I guess.
Which would make sense.
Shackled is a terrible word. Like,
it's so bad.
It's so bad.
What an asshole.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's kind of, but obviously, I don't really know. But that's his plan. So the next morning he just gets up and goes to find Reese, and they go to Windhaven. But Reese is just like, they're not here. So Cassian breaks into the house and can smell that there were males in here, but you couldn't smell them outside. So he's like, they must have winnowed in, which Illyrians can't do, except for one night when they have the power to winnow. Of course. So they look around and there are signs of struggle, but the girls are gone and he can smell the sleeping potion. And he knows that it's a message. And Reese actually had disappeared and comes back and says, like, Devlin confirms that the bloodrite began at midnight. So they're like, shit, they're in the bloodrite. And I'm just like, why didn't we kill Devlin? Like, not that he's the one that did this, but, like, why don't we just kill him? Because he's clearly a piece of shit.
But apparently he is, like, one of the more tolerable ones, so...
I don't believe it. He can't be. I don't know. This is... Anyway, that's where we are. So yeah, Cassian realizes that the 3 girls are in the bloodrite, and 3 females are in the bloodrite, and that's not good. We go to Nesta's point of view, and her head is aching, and she can smell males around her, and she's like, as she's waking up, and I'm like, we don't get Gwen's point of view, but that sounds terrifying for somebody who's obviously dealt with sexual assault. And, like, the only people that she's, like, been near that are men are Cassian and Azriel, and they've been, like...
And Reese.
Yeah. So, like, that had to have been terrifying for Gwen, but we don't get her point of view. But yeah, so she wakes up, and she realizes that this is the bloodrite, and she actually woke up before any of the males around her because she's made. Is what she assumes, which, like, makes sense, like, ish. Although, I kind of assumed it would be the opposite. I kind of assumed, like, they'd give her the same sleeping potion they gave to everybody else, and then, like, she'd be asleep for longer because she's a female and they're all, like, honking males.
Yeah. Like,
but I guess it just...
Yeah. I'm assuming that it's, like, a magic potion, so it's probably spelled more for Illyrians than it is for others, so...
Yeah, and, like, she has more magic than Illyrians, so maybe her magic burned it off faster. Like, I don't really know.
But isn't her magic is gone, though, right?
Yeah, she can't reach her magic during the bloodrite, so I don't understand. But she woke up first. That's all that matters. Yeah, so she actually thinks then, like, she reaches inside and her magic is gone. And she thinks she needs to find Gwen and Emery because she knows that they're going to be in here too. And she's sure that they were all dropped off in different places, just like Reese, Az, and Cassian were.
Yeah.
So she's like, she needs to get to higher ground to be able to figure out where she is. But then she hears somebody else move, and she like looks around, and there's a big man there, and he just like glances at a knife in a tree. And she thinks to herself, she knows that it's illegal to have weapons in the bloodrite. Like, there just aren't weapons in the bloodrite. That's not a thing. But she thinks, like, that doesn't matter. And she just, like, runs for the knife. And then we go to Cassian's point of view. And this is kind of, like, the common thing in Sarah J. Maas books where she, like, in the end, all the action is happening at once and you, like, bounce back and forth.
Yeah.
So Cassian's point of view, he's not okay. He says he's going after them, but Rhys says he knows the laws. And, like, everybody is there now. And Feyre's like, what laws? And Cassian just says, like, anyone who pulls someone out of the bloodrite will be executed, and so will the warrior they pull out. So, like, they have to stay in. And I'm like, what? Like...
It's convenient.
Also, Rhys is the High Lord, and he's the strongest. Like, who's gonna execute Cassian? Who? And Nesta? Who?
I guess.
Devlin?
So I guess part of the problem here is that I feel like the issue is that the Illyrians have brutal customs, which, sure, Rhys could cancel out and, like, change everything. However, they're like their strongest, like, it's like their not so secret weapon, right? It's like the reason why the Night Court is so feared. One, yes, Rhys's power, but two, they have armies of the most elite warriors in existence. So, like, it's a... Like, unfortunately for Rhys, he can't just come in and, like, decimate all of the culture and rules, no matter how backwards and awful they are. Like, you know, if you destroy an entire culture, they're not going to be willing to, like, fight for you. So you almost have to, like, it's definitely a balancing act for him to be leader, to understanding that these are terrible people and they're doing terrible things, but also you can't destroy everything that they believe in, or else, like, they're not gonna fight for you.
Yeah. And, like, I get that. I guess my issue is they didn't consent to do the bloodrite.
But they sort of did when they did the qualifier.
Yeah, but they didn't even know it was the qualifier.
That's Cassian and Az's fault, though.
True. I completely agree with that. But also, like, I feel bad for Emery for saying this, but, like, Nesta and Gwyn aren't Illyrian. Should they be held to these customs and standards that, like, shouldn't they be able to pull them out at the very least because they're not Illyrians? I just think it's convenient that we always have these fucking laws that Rhys can't break the laws in his own land. There's no map of the middle. There's no going into the bloodrite once it started. And you're like, the bloodrite's already fucked anyway because there's weapons now.
Yeah, but they don't know that, though.
No, but, like, we've already broken so many rules, but Rhys is like, my hands are tied, I can't do anything. And you're like, if Feyre was in there, would he do nothing? That's
true. That's a very good point, actually.
I don't know.
Can you imagine pregnant Feyre in there?
Would have been good. She would have kicked ass.
Yep.
And we would have all been the better for it.
But she wouldn't have, because she can't do magic when she's pregnant.
Of course. Ugh. So, yeah. Anyway, that's just a convenient thing that is there. So Cassian's just like, so what? We do nothing for a week? Because the bloodrite takes a week.
Right.
And they are like, no, we already told you this, but you weren't listening. So they tell him again that apparently Briallen captured Eris. And Cassian's like, I don't give a fuck.
Yes.
Which fair, yeah. But Asriel's like, no, we have to go get him. And Feyre obviously can't go because of the baby. But Cassian's like, why can't Rhys do it? And he finally tells everybody about their death bargain. That, like, if Feyre dies, he's gonna die too. So he's like, I can't go because it's too dangerous, because if I die, Feyre dies and the baby dies. And I'm like, they're already gonna die. This isn't a reason. Like, I think this was just, like, a convenient time for them to tell everybody that they have this bond, this whatever bargain. But I'm like, this isn't really a reason that he can't do it. Because Cassian's like, you can just winnow in there, grab Eris, and winnow out. Like, why don't you just do that? But obviously, figuring out that they have this bargain, everyone's like, what the fuck are you talking about? So Amren calls them fools, and they all kind of realize, like, Feyre's gonna die because they've all kind of know that, and that means that Rhys is also gonna die, and they're just like, what the fuck? But it all comes down to meaning that, like, Cassian and Az have to do it, and then Cass asks why, like, Amren can't do it, and she's just like, I'm powerless now. And, like, everyone's kind of been tiptoeing around it, so it's kind of nice for her to just be like,
yeah.
Duh.
Yeah. Also, like, it's everything's very convenient now. It has to be Azriel and Cassian. No other options.
Yeah. And, like, more just left for Valahan again. For Vahalan, whatever it is, again. And I don't know why I can't. Anyway, it's fine. So they also are like, they have to get Eris before he tells all of their secrets. And Feyre hopes, like, his dagger will be enough to shield him against the Maid Crown's power. And we're like, this is just an assumption that everyone's making, that, like, just because Nesta made these objects. Also, there's another fucking sword and another fucking great sword or whatever it's called. Why don't you give those to Cass and Ez just in case they are helpful against the Crown? Let's give this guy we don't even care about, who fucked over our friend, a priceless dagger so that he doesn't get, like, mind controlled. But fuck our friends. They'll be fine. Well, whatever. Okay. So yeah. Amren says they need to go now, and Cassian summons his armor and says he trained the females well, and if anyone can survive the bloodrite, they will. So that's good. We go to Nesta's point of view now, and the man is going for the knife too, the male, the Illyrian. But he stumbles, and she uses her running high knee technique to get over everybody.
Her running high knee technique? She has a technique of, like, high knees!
I guess so. The first part of the obstacle course was footwork, so I guess it's that kind of thing. But I don't know.
Can I just say,
it's
like,
kind of funny.
Surely he would also have this training. But yet, so, like, he is presumably, what, like 75, 80 years old? Because that's when Fae reach adulthood. Like, it takes them a really long time. So he's been training since he was a small child. And yet, Nesta's been training for, like, 6 months at best.
Yeah.
And she manages to beat him after 70 years of training.
Yeah.
I just.
That's my whole with the rest of this book. Are you fucking kidding me? And, like, I can't. We'll get into it when we get into it. So she touches the handle of the knife first, but then he, like, rams into her, and they fall down into, like, a stream bed, and when they stop rolling, he's dead, and the, like, knife or sword or whatever it is, dagger, is through his throat. So, like, I guess she did it on purpose, but, like, you're just like,
I don't know if she did.
I know. I was like, are we saying she accidentally stabbed him through the throat? Because that's, like, impressive. I don't know. Anyway, so that's what happened. So she's actually also just wearing a nightgown, because obviously she wasn't planning to be taken. So like everyone else is wearing clothes though.
But like, so does that mean that like the Illyrians just go to sleep in like full armor every night, like just waiting for the rite? Might be tonight.
Well, like, I would.
I would too.
Just in case. But I think Nesta knew it was going to be in a few days, so, like, I think they had, like, an idea that it would be, like, soon. So, like, maybe the last, like, 3 nights they went to bed in full armor. Which is smart. She should have done it, too, even though she didn't know.
She was distraught.
Yes. So, she actually steals his clothes and his shoes, and then she's like, I gotta go find my friends. We go over to Cassian's point of view. No, we don't, sorry. We actually think back to one time Cassian told her that there are 3 dumping grounds for the rite. There's one in the north, one in the west, and one in the south, and then Ramiel is to the east. So she climbs a tree, to kind of figure out what the fuck is going on. And Ramiel's super far away, and she realizes, like, she was dumped in the west, so now she wonders, like, should she go north or south? Like, which direction should she pick first? And she also thinks, like, she knows the rule of not being able to save her, so she isn't waiting on Cassian to come and help her, because she knows that nobody can. So, like, I'm glad she knows that, because if I were in there, would be like, somebody save me, please.
Like, help me.
Yeah. She also thinks, like, she has some tiny nicks from, like, rolling down the stream bed, whatever. And they aren't healing quickly like they normally do because the magic is being suppressed. So she's healing at, like, a super slow rate like a human would. So that's not good. She starts to hear people around her waking up. So and, like, they're already fighting. So, like, she woke up in, like, a group of hundreds of men around her, Illyrians. And they're all waking up now and already starting to fight. So she's like, I gotta get out of here. So she starts climbing down the tree, and she's like, by the time she gets to the bottom, she needs to decide on a direction. But she actually sees her bracelet is glowing, and a soft voice says, hurry to her. So she moves her hand to the north, and it glows, and then she moves it to the south, and it's not glowing as brightly. So she thinks, like, these bracelets were made, we literally just talked about it, and her wish that she, like, put into the charms was that they would always be able to find each other. And she thinks that, like, this must mean whoever is to the north is in trouble. It also, so she kind of has a moment here where she's like, it's weird that the bracelets are working because, like, the bracelets are made and, like, her magic is gone. But it makes her think, like, that's the distinction between her being a made person and this being a made object. She likes that there's kind of a distinction there because it makes her feel, I think her humanity being taken away and her being made Fae made her feel like she wasn't, like, a being anymore. Like, it kind of made her feel more like she just was an object. So this differentiation that the bloodrite has made between this object that can still work and her magic, she kind of feels a bit settled by that, and it makes her feel better in general. So she obviously needs to go to the north. That is what that is all about. So she starts doing that, and then an arrow flies by her, and she's like, shit, the knife wasn't a fluke. There's, like, more. There's actual weapons here. Yeah. This is not great. So she goes, and, like, the arrow went into a tree behind her. So she gets the arrow, and she goes forward again, but a male puts an arrowhead to her throat and tells her to get up. And we go over to Cassian's point of view, because of course we do. They're flying around Briallen's castle, and they're high enough that it's hard to breathe so that nobody can, like, spot them. And they don't see anything, but he plans to find Eris quickly and then kick his ass for getting caught. And, like, that's it. That's the whole point of view. So we go to Nesta's point of view, and this male tells her to give him her weapons. But she asks, like, which direction he came from, and she asks if there was a female there. And he blinks, which she takes as confirmation that there was a female there. And I'm like, why in this part have I gotten two people blinking stupidly means that, yeah.
Can you just imagine people just, like, staring at each other and just blinking?
Well, that isn't Throne of Glass, but it's heartbreaking.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
So, yeah. So anyway, she starts handing him the arrow, and she slowly reaches for the knife, and he says, so he came from the north because she's going north, but he says he left the crippled bitch to the others, and she's like, oh, no, you didn't. So he tells her to drop the knife and back up, and she starts lowering it, but then she flicks her wrist and, like, stabs him in the dick.
I love it.
Which is great. And then she, like, slams into him and, like, grabs and twists the blade, which... And then she grabs her knife back, she grabs the bow and the 2 arrows, and then she just runs. And you're like, good. She didn't lose anything. She gets near a river, but, like, she doesn't go too close to it because she can actually hear people there, like, discussing becoming allies and, like, figuring themselves out and getting water in their canteens. And she hears one person say, pity that bitch escaped. She would have made for good entertainment on the cold nights.
Ugh.
And it's just so annoying. Like, I hate that everyone's just like, that bitch. I'm like, is there no other word? Like, yeah.
But
it's
also,
exhausting.
But also, like, it bothers me, like, okay, I understand that we are supposed to, we're supposed to dislike the Illyrians in this moment. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? We are supposed to understand that their society does not value women.
Yeah.
I get it. However, I do find it a little tiring that every time they meet, and, like, we will see, like, one person sort of, one
singular Illyrian
sort of, like, going against the norm, but, like, it really bothers me that literally every time we encounter an Illyrian, they're like, oh, I'm gonna rape you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You. Like, it's just, like, it's tiring. Like, I understand as a race of people, they don't value women that way, but, like, you would think that there would be at least some variation between individual thought.
Yeah, it's very, like, it's just exhausting.
Yeah, like, it's just tiring. Like, I would even be okay if she encountered some that would be like, oh, they don't deserve to be here. Because they're not Illyrian. I hate them. I'll kill... Like, I wish there was just, like, other levels of hatred or other levels of disrespect instead of just, you're a woman, all you're good for is for me to rape.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
I do,
it's just like, give us a little something else. Give us, like, a depth of hatred instead of, like, this surface level hatred.
Yeah, and it's not like nobody's even said anything about, like, them not, like, throughout this whole part, nobody says anything about them not being Illyrians and not deserving to be there because they didn't, like, grow up the same way and all that shit.
Yeah. Like,
we don't get any of that, and, like, that I could see as, like, not right. Like, obviously, they didn't want to be here either, but I could understand that, but this whole, like, Illyrians are just evil? Like, I just don't understand, like, how did we get Cass and Az? How did we get Rhys? Like, how are we, like, none of them are good. None.
Yeah.
Like, I thought we were saying that Rhys is making changes. Obviously, he's doing a fucking shit job if they're still, like, this is the younger generation. Yeah. They're still shit. Like, what is he doing that is doing anything to change anybody's minds? It's just, it is one note of just, like, it's kind of like when we talked about Amarantha a while ago and how, like, she's one note evil. All the Illyrians at this moment are just one note evil. Like,
yeah,
it's just unnecessary.
Yeah. And, like, I also get, too, that, like, it's the easiest thing to do, and probably the thing that makes us the most upset, right, is seeing women as objects. Like, she knows her readership well. It's not all women, but I would say, like, over half.
Yeah.
You know, probably 3/4 of her readership are women. So, like, obviously she's choosing the thing that sort of makes us the most, like, grossed out and, like, ugh, and makes us hate the Illyrians the most and want to see their demise.
Yeah, I guess that's the other thing. We can't picture them too much like Cass or Az or Rhys, because then we won't want them all to die. But yeah, it's just, it is one note, and it's, yeah. Anyway, so Nesta's just like shit. And one of the males says, like, she's definitely dead. Like, she dove into the water and it's freezing. So, like,
yeah,
it's too late. She's dead. So Nesta follows the river, like, the way it's streaming, and she sees a waterfall, and she's like, oh shit, if she went over the waterfall, she's fucked. But she can actually see Emery, like, stuck on a branch, basically, and, like, she didn't go over the waterfall. She's still there. And she can tell that she's still breathing, but she's not really moving. So Nesta's just like, fuck. She has to go in and get her. So she actually takes off all of her clothes, and she takes the bow and jumps in. She, like, jumps from rock to get to Emery, and she's unresponsive, but she is still alive, and Nesta's just like, okay, I need to get her back to the shore. So she actually rips Emery's nightgown off of her and, like, spins it around to make a rope. And she uses the bow to, like, go around both of them to keep them together. And then she uses the rope to tie Emery around her, too, just to keep her secure to her. So she goes back to the shore, rock, and she knows, like, she needs to find warmth and shelter, or they're both gonna die. So she covers Emery in the clothes that she has, and she, like, finds some wood and starts a fire near them, and just, like, cuddles into Emery, trying to get her warm. And I just didn't think she was super far away from all of these men.
Yeah.
But I'm like, this seems interesting, but I guess she's far enough away that it's fine. Cool.
but also, so, like, does she get naked now?
Like, I think she was naked for all of this.
Yeah.
She just threw all the clothes, like, she was naked going around doing all of this, which I'm just like, I cannot imagine. So, yeah. Emery is starting to warm up, but Nesta's thinking, like, they are super exposed, and it's going to be night soon.
She's naked.
Yes.
Yes, she's
and
exposed.
She worries about the beasts that Cassian told her about, and she obviously worries about Gwyn too, but she starts to mind still because she's like, I can't panic. So she actually does grab the jacket now, which I'm like, good, that's smart.
Put clothes on, yeah.
Put some fucking clothes on. And she goes to look for a cave because she knows that there are sometimes caves around water. I don't know. I think Cassian gave her all this information. And then she hears an Illyrian male speak to her and says, the entrance is here. And he kind of talks to her a lot, but he seems like he's decent-ish.
Here's our one.
He said,
our one decent person.
And it's like,
and
political.
Yeah, but I sort of hope he comes back.
Oh, I 100% do. Like, I don't mind him. The only thing that I, like, if it wasn't Nesta, would he have said anything? Because he kind of admits here that he's like, yeah, I would never kill Feyre Cursebreaker's sister. And you're like, yeah, I guess now she owes him a favor, kind of.
I see what you mean. Like, if it was just Emery or if it was Gwyn, like, would he have offered the same thing? Or would he have been like, fend for yourself, bitch? Like,
yeah. Like, I don't think he would kill either of them.
No.
But I think he might have stayed quiet if there was nothing to gain for him.
Maybe.
Which fair. He's there doing his own shit. I get it. But I'm also like, even our one good guy isn't even really, like, morally good. He's just, like, trying to get a foot up.
Yeah. But, like, listen, I don't hate it.
No, I also hope he comes back. I want to hear, like, I want to know more about him. Yeah. So yeah. He basically says, like, she's obviously the one that killed the naked guy that he saw because obviously she has clothes now. And he asks where the weapons came from. And she just stays silent. And he says he is trying to avoid conflict. And he said she should be smart and come into the cave with him and bring whoever she has who is injured. Because he's like, obviously, you have somebody else. I don't know how he knows that, but he does.
Can I just add,
how
do caves protect you from beasts?
I don't know. I don't know.
Come into a cave, and they probably sleep in them too. So, like, I don't understand how having a cave protects you. It's not like it has a door.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Like, is there like a rock in front of it so that, like, nobody can get in? I don't understand. I don't get it.
Anyway.
So, she's like, why should I do that? So you can kill me while I sleep. And he plays his trump card and says he knows who she is and isn't stupid enough to kill Feyre Cursebreaker's sister. Because Feyre would never forgive him for it. And she's like, well, she would, because it's the right. Like, nobody would hold it against anybody for killing me. And he's like, yeah, no, she definitely would. Like, I'm not crazy enough to do that. And you're like, yeah, of course she would. Obviously. And she's kind of like, so you're doing this for her favor? And she asks him to swear not to kill or harm both of them in any way, or have anyone he knows do it. So we get his name now. It's Balthazar. And he actually goes and helps her carry Emery into the cave. So he's not a terrible person. The three of them, even though Emery is sleeping, kind of cuddle for warmth then. And Nesta says, when dawn comes, he needs to be gone. You know, this is his cave. He's doing you a favor.
He invited you in, madam.
Yeah. But anyway, he's like, if we survive the night, he'll be glad to go. He's like, I wouldn't be surprised if her blood, like, attracts something. So you're like, okay, Nesta, like, anyway. So she asks him then, like, why he isn't just killing everybody. And he says he just wants to reach Ramiel and become Aristion, which I think is just, like, if you reach Ramiel, you become Aristion. If you get to, like, the gate, you're a second one. And if you get to the stone, you're the third.
No, I think it's just being there is... Hang on. Just being there is 1, reaching the base of the mountain is 2, and then reaching the stony thing that transports you away is 3. The port key.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So, yeah. So he just wants to reach Ramiel. He just wants to be higher than just having survived the bloodrite.
Yeah.
So he's like, I don't need to go around killing people. But he also says, like, he's not afraid to kill people if he needs to. So they're in the cave all night, and they can hear the beasts all night, and he tells her that the beasts can even climb trees. So everybody out there is dying from these beasts. And why aren't they coming into the cave? Who knows?
Which is on the ground.
Yeah.
Easier meal than climbing trees, but whatever.
Exactly. So he takes the first watch, and Nesta's just like, she's not gonna sleep, but she mind stills so that she can, like, get some rest. I don't know. Anyway, calm the fuck down, I guess. And then she does a watch, and he sleeps. In the morning, Emery is still unconscious, but her wounds aren't bleeding anymore, like actively bleeding, so that's good. Balthazar says, you'll find plenty of clothes today, and then he says, good luck, Archeron, and leaves. We go over to Cassian's point of view now, and there's no sign of Eris, but a passing merchant tells them that a red-headed Fey male was taken to the castle last night, and is soon to be moved somewhere else. So Az says they'll wait and trail them when they leave. And this is one of those moments where I was just like, we really don't know a lot about Azriel. Like, is he dumb? Like, is he evil? Like, why is he just like, yes, this one merchant knows everything about the castle. Like, why are we believing this?
Yeah. Yeah, no, good point. I also wonder, like, why they're trusting, and like they're not questioning how a merchant knows all the ins and outs of, like, this castle.
When they're gonna leave.
How does he know that they're leaving?
And taking Eris. Like, he's basically like, they're gonna take him in a few days. Like, why are we believing this? And, like, obviously, I don't think Azriel's gonna be evil. I don't think she's gonna make anybody that is part of our main group evil. Like, we talked about, like, the people saying, like, Gwyn could be evil kind of thing, and that would completely destroy Nesta's life and everything again. But I really don't think she's just gonna make Azriel evil either. Like, I don't know. I'd like, maybe you could convince me that Azriel was charmed by the crown at this point, and that's why. Or, like, maybe he's super worried about, maybe he's in love with Gwyn. Maybe he's super worried about Gwyn.
Maybe.
And he's not thinking straight or, like, trying to figure out, questioning the merchant more or questioning anyone else to figure anything else. But it just seems, like, too easy that he's like, and I believe him. So Cassian actually starts to wonder if Amren or Helion are, like, could break the bargain between Rhys and Feyre, because he's like, Feyre's gonna die, Rhys can't die too. So he's wondering if, like, they can figure out a way to break this bargain. So I don't know, it's just kind of funny. But he also thinks, like, Rhys can't actually contact them now either because they're too far away to Mindspeak, so they have no news about what's happening there or what's happening in the bloodrite, but he knows he would feel it if Nesta died because they're mates. And he knows that she obviously made it through the night because he would feel it if she died. We go to Nesta's point of view now, and she finds some cleanish clothes the next day, and she finds smaller boots and another dagger and some water and, like, a half-eaten rabbit meal. And I'm like, so the beasts only like human? Or Alarian. They only eat Alarian. They won't eat, like, this cooked meal. They're like, nope. Sure. So she brings it all back to Emery, and Emery is actually awake now, but she's super weak. So she gets Emery all dressed up in some clothes, and Emery asks about Gwyn, and then Nesta shows her the bracelets, and she's like, she's south, so let's try to find her. Because it's been a full night, and, like, we're assuming that, like, if Emery was in trouble, she likely woke up with the same time as all the Illyrians, and, like, that would make sense since she's also Illyrian. Maybe that makes some kind of sense. But we don't know what happened with Gwyn. So, Emery actually tells Nesta that she was attacked basically immediately and then chased by the men, and she jumped into the water and actually hit her head on a rock and remembers nothing until the cave. So, like, that's how she ended up where she is. A day passes, and they actually find another cave for the night, and they huddle for warmth. And, again, how does a cave save them from creatures? But sure. Emery takes the first watch, and Nesta finally sleeps. But then when they go out the next day, it's snowing, and they are super cold because they barely have any clothes. Yeah. And then Emery can smell a fire, and they check their charms, and the fire is in the same direction as the bracelet says that Gwyn is. So they're like, ooh, could it be Gwyn's fire? You're like, that would be lucky. But as they go towards it, they hear male laughter. And they actually see a nightgown hanging near the camp. And they're like, fuck. Because, like, obviously, it's Gwyn's nightgown. And they can hear the men talking and, like, making plans and shit. And Nesta decides, like, if they hurt Gwyn, she's gonna spend the rest of this week just killing them. She doesn't even care about anything else. That's her plan. Nesta tries to, like, take a peek at them because, like, if Gwyn tried, her wings would be visible. But there are 10 males around the fire, and they have, like, axes and swords and knives. Like, there's weapons galore. And she can tell, like, the male in the middle is the leader of this group, and he looks kind of familiar to her, which is interesting. So when she goes back to tell Emery this, Emery is actually being pulled down the hill by 2 males. And she's like, oh shit. So they were caught.
Oh my.
So, I know. So we go to Cassian's point of view now, and they're just waiting for the group to leave, and Cassian wonders if Brialyn knows they're there. And Azriel asks if they think, like, Eris is even still alive. Which is like, yay. Cass wants to break in, but, like, this place is super warded, so they know they can't. And we're just like, this is, I don't know. I guess this is necessary. It all just, it's all so convenient.
Yeah.
Azriel wonders if Amren might find a loophole on helping Nesta, but Cassian knows there isn't anything that they can do. And he actually thinks to himself, like, even if he could, he's been thinking about it this past day, he doesn't think Nesta would want him to come in and save her. he thinks that she would want to do it herself.
Yeah.
So I do like that he's like kind of come to this realization. Like I feel like it's kind of like maybe calmed him a bit, and like I think it is true. So I do like that. We go over to Nesta's point of view now, and the men say they didn't, or the males say they didn't think they'd be stupid enough to fall for the nightgown. And that's the difference between being a female thinking she's a warrior and the real thing. Like, fuck off. So the leadery guy is Bellius, who is Emery's cousin that we met before. And Nesta's looking at him and she's like, his eyes look glassy. And she asks him where Gwyn is, but they say they found the gown and they didn't find Gwyn. And he says she shouldn't have come. And she's just like, it was against our will. Like, we didn't want to come here. And Nesta asks if he's the one that sabotaged the rite with the weapons. And he says he wouldn't call it sabotage, and neither would she. And Nesta realizes then that the glassy look in his eyes is very similar to the glassy look that was on Eris's soldier's eyes. And she wonders if he's actually been under Briellen's influence since the last time we saw him in the book. Because at that point, he was in Emery's shop, and they thought he was drunk. Right. So, like, they're like, right. Nesta's like, maybe he's just been under her influence for this whole time, which is wild. And he says he can't let Emery live because it would be too shameful for their family if he didn't kill her. And he also says that he gets first crack at the Fae bitch too. And then magically blood splatters all over his face. And you're like, what the fuck is going on? But the man next to him is killed by a creature. And the creature is like attacking all of the men now. And Nesta says, run to Emery. And they grab their weapons and get the fuck out of there. And then Gwyn actually yells out, over here. And they run to her. And they follow her until they can't hear the men screaming anymore. So, like, cool. Gwyn kind of explains that, like, she woke up early like Nesta. And she wonders if it's because they aren't Illyrian. Which, like, I think makes sense. Maybe their magic somehow burnt some of it off before the magic disappeared or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Reasons.
Yeah.
We're glad that Gwyn woke up early because then she likely wasn't as traumatized as she could have been. Gwyn also found weapons and then she changed her clothes and she figured out that the bracelets, like how they work too. And she says she actually slept in trees, but the creatures didn't eat her, I guess.
Yeah.
We kind of get a bit of a reason later, but you're still like, okay. And she actually, during the day, learned where the beasts sleep and that they get angry when they're woken. So she went and woke up this beast and then, like, it chased her to the men. Yeah. So they have 4 more days to go. And
I don't understand how it's 4. Isn't it a week long?
Yeah.
Hasn't it only been 2 days?
Listen. I think so. It was only 2 nights. I guess.
Oh, I guess 2 nights.
I guess they're,
so they're on day 3.
Yeah, so they're like, there's 4 days after, okay. I guess.
Yeah, okay.
Sure.
Fine.
And then Gwyn just says, like, you guys came to look for me. And they're just like, of course we did. We're sisters.
Oh,
it's just like a sweet moment.
It is a sweet moment. So, Nesta, Gwyn, and Emery, like, I guess they start making their way towards Ramiel. They climb a tree that night to keep them safe because they can't find a cave, even though monsters, the beasts can climb trees. For some reason, them climbing a tree is different.
Yeah, they do kind of say that Gwyn thinks it's because she doesn't smell like an Illyrian. And they're like, hopefully we can mask Emery's scent between the 2 of us. Yeah. And you're like, is this? Okay, I guess.
Yeah. So then they go a la Hunger Games and take one from Katniss and they like lash themselves to the treetops with rope. And they ask Emery for deets like on the right. Like, you know, she's grown up and is an Illyrian, so she might have further insight into the right than they do. And she tells them that like her family have never reached Ramiel the mountain. So, as a family, there's a lot of resentment against Cassie and Azriel and Rhys for having, like, completed it and reached the summit and become, like, given that title that very, very few have ever gotten.
Yeah.
And she then says that, like, scaling Ramiel itself, like, climbing the mountain is super hard because it's jaggedy and there's jagged rocks everywhere. And they'll be lucky to make it to the pass of Annelius
sounds right.
Annelius alive. Especially with their Fey healing slowed down.
Yeah.
So then we get a history lesson on the pass of Annelius. So apparently during the Great War between the Fae and the ancient beings that ruled over them, aka I think the Daglin.
Yeah.
I think that's what we said, they were the Daglin.
Yeah. I guess this is, I didn't really put together that this was the same. I was just like, a war!
Yeah. I mean, God only knows. An ancient war! I'm assuming it's with the Daglin when they were trying to, like, become independent Fae.
Yes. That makes sense.
So there was apparently a key battle in these mountains, and the enemy really wanted to make it to the stone at the top of Ramiel, but no one knows why. So again, obviously there's
Let's
something.
never find out.
Obviously there's something to this mountain.
Mm-hmm.
And a young Illyrian warrior named Annelius holds the line against the enemy for days. So sort of like a 300 sort of a vibe. Like, I'm guessing it's a narrow pass, and he manages to, like, just stay in this narrow pass and doesn't let anybody pass through. Mm-hmm. He does die in the end, Annelius. Like, he died holding the line, but held it off. He held the enemy off for long enough for allies to come and prevent them from reaching the top of the mountain. So apparently the rite is to honor that warrior. And there are a few different ways up to the top of Ramiel. But the pass of Annelius is the hardest and the most infamous. So, like, I just don't understand why you would go that way if it's the hardest.
Yeah.
And the most famous. Like, why would you then not take one of the other ways up that's more, like, uncommon but easier?
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know.
Anyway,
doesn't make sense.
Apparently, like, taking that pass is called the breaking.
Mm-hmm.
Because I guess you're very easily broken.
Fair.
So the next morning, Gwyn, like, climbs way up higher in the tree to figure out where they have to go. And they sort of guesstimate that Ramiel is, like, 3 days away, but there's a ravine in between them and the mountain. And there is a bridge for them to cross, but they have to hurry, because if anybody makes it to the bridge before they do, obviously you're gonna cut the bridge behind you so that nobody else can cross in the same place.
So, Nesta spent a full day finding Emery.
Yes.
And then they spent another day going away from the mountain, one assumes.
Yes.
South.
Yes.
To find
Gwyn.
Yes.
Yes.
Finally find her the third day.
Yes.
And they're like, okay, now we're going to start our trek towards the mountain. Why is nobody else there? Why is nobody else faster? They didn't, like, they went...
That's a great...
North, south, like, I just don't understand how they're the first ones here. Like, I don't get it.
I also...
Maybe the implication is the Illyrians are so bloodthirsty that they're just killing each other and, like, they're not actually going towards the mountain. Like, I don't get it.
Especially this Balthazar guy who's not...
Well,
we already know that he's not interested in fighting. So, like, why is he not just being sneaky? Like, I don't know. I agree.
How has he not made it?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's odd.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Anyway, so they all decide they're gonna run the entire way to get there before anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And they just run. Even though yesterday Emery was unconscious and had a head wound, she's fine today and can run an entire day.
Yes.
And
the Illyrians cannot run like that because they haven't been training for 70 years, like we already said.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, so they run, and they're almost there, but as they're, like, heading to the bridge, they see that there are like a group of 6 men that are also heading to the bridge. So they worry that they decide that instead of just trying to beat the dudes to the bridge, they're just going to attack them. Just so that, like, and kill them all, just so that they don't have competition heading to the bridge.
Yeah.
So the 3 of them work in sync together, setting males up for each other, and they just kill them all.
Which is like, I do, fine. I get that they have worked together for so long that they can, so long, like
6
3 months, I don't know, 5.
Yeah.
Maybe
5.
Didn't Nesta train for a bit by herself?
Yes, yeah.
I will accept that they know each other's movements well, so they can do this. But how have these badass Illyrians not trained too? Like, I get that this specific group maybe didn't train together, maybe that's the issue, but like, I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
It's kind of unbelievable, and like, I hate saying it, because I know this book is very much a, like, feminist and very much like they're so badass women they can do anything, and I love that. I absolutely love that. Like, I want to be a fucking Valkyrie.
Yeah,
but I just don't. I don't buy that with 6 months of training you can be better than somebody that has trained for 70 years in like a camp where, like, they're not.
Yeah, training is everything.
Yeah, they don't train in the morning and then go to the library. They're training all day, every day. They have to fight for every scrap of food, they have to fight for shelter, they have to fight for everything they have with each other. Like, I don't get it.
Do you know what it sort of reminds me of? Sort of reminds me of, and I know this is, but The Princess Bride.
Okay.
So, in the sort of near the beginning of the movie / book, Inigo Montoya, who is like the sword fighter. Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father, prepare to die.
Yes.
He is fighting the Man in Black. They have a sword fight, right? Mm-hmm. And Inigo Montoya has been training with the sword for 20 years.
Yeah.
And the man and starts fighting him with his left hand, and then he's like, "Oh, you're better than me, but I'm not left-handed. I am right-handed." So then he gets his right-handed sword out and he starts fighting, and, like, again, training 20 years. Then the Man in Black, we learn, who is, like, Wesley, who's our, like, knight in shining armor sort of guy, reveals that he has been gone for 5 years and has been training in sword fighting and fencing and, like, whatever in that 5 years. So he manages to beat somebody with 20 years training versus his 5 years training. It's just not...
Yeah.
It's just like, really? Yeah. You managed to accomplish more in 5 years than somebody who's been training their entire life to fight? Like...
And, like, even 5 years, if you put the work in, you could get good.
Yeah.
But it's only months that these women have been training, and it's only 2, maybe 3 hours a day.
Yeah.
And they went from no base level.
Yeah, from literally not being able, like, standing up and, like, curling your toes to the floor made your legs shake uncontrollably.
And, like, which I don't really understand how we're saying Nesta's such an amazing dancer if she doesn't have balance. Like, make it make sense. Yeah. But, yeah, I'm like, I don't know. And it feels like, I know a lot of people, I just feel bad saying it, because I do know that this book is such a, like, raw feminism, and, like, I am so much that person, so I do feel bad, like, this being but I'm just, like, it's not about them being men. It's about they trained for 70 years. This is their life. They grew up listening to these stories. This is their moment.
Yeah. And then and then they're bested by 3 people that have been training for 6 months.
They could have trained for longer. Like, I don't know. You could have made this book longer. Or they could have trained more.
Yeah.
Than 2 hours a day. That's not enough. And I get Nesta did stairs, too.
Yeah.
Cute. But that's not going to get you to the same level.
No. But, like, I wonder if maybe they're insinuating that, like, Valkyrie training is, like, like, so much better than Illyrian training. Like, maybe they're saying it's more effective. Like, the mind stilling is so important. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't get it.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So, we leave them for a second. Go back to Cass and Az. So obviously he's pissed. They've been monitoring the castle for like 4 days. Nothing is happening. And Azriel assures him that Nesta is alive. And if she wasn't, Cass would know, which he said earlier, like when when you said like the last time, he was like, I know Nesta's alive. So, but now Azriel's having to reassure him of that.
Yeah.
And he just says, like, obviously you would know in your heart if she was not alive. And so it says, like, we've trained them well. You have to trust in our training. Mm-hmm. Then suddenly they see a small caravan leaving the castle, and they think they're going to see a prison wagon with, like, Eris in the prison wagon, but instead they see Eris on a horse leading the caravan. And they think that he's in the crown's thrall. Like, oh, he must be under control of the crown. But they see the dagger Rhys gave him, and they assume that if he was under the crown's control, he would have handed that dagger to Briallen. So they assume then he's a traitor.
This is a leap
it's
that I'm like...
such a leap!
Maybe if they took a fucking nap, they wouldn't have been this dumb. Like, I'm like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
I'm like, why are we making this assumption?
Yeah.
Sure.
It's just, it's very much like connecting dots that are nowhere near each other. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, well, obviously, if he was under Briallen's control, he'd obviously give her a made dagger. Like, what if she allowed him to keep it? Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're not thinking about everything else. Anyway.
No. And I get it for Cassian, I guess, because he's, like, freaking out because Nesta's taken.
Yeah.
And, like, I could even say, sure, maybe Azriel's fucking in love with Gwyn, and we just don't know it. Like, I don't think he is. I can see him being worried about them, but, like, I don't think it should affect him as much as it's affecting Cassian, especially since he's, like, the shadow singer, the secrets guy. Like, I feel like he should be better than this.
Yeah, agreed. So they decide that they're gonna trail the caravan, the group of people, and see what they can figure out instead of attacking him right away. Because, like, I guess Cass's original, like, his instinct is to be like, he's a traitor, I'm gonna kill him. But they decide, no, we should gather information first.
Smart.
I guess.
Yeah.
So, back to Nesta and crew. They encounter another group of males but this time the males have bows and arrows before they get to the bridge. But, like, they're right at the bridge, and I guess the males are sort of behind them. So the three of them race across the bridge, and the males are shooting them with arrows. And, of course, Gwyn gets shot in the leg. Which means she can't...
Straight fucking through, too.
Yeah.
Like, ow.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So, essentially, like, she is, like, limping across the bridge and sort of, like, stuck. And, like, the other two are, like, running across. And she yells at the girls to, like, cut the bridge with her still on it. Essentially, like, sacrificing herself. Because she's too close to the males who are, like, trailing them. Mm-hmm. And she can't really walk because she has an arrow through her leg.
Yeah.
Or, like, I guess, a wound through the leg. So Nesta comes up with an idea. So they get across the bridge, and she tells Emery, she gives Emery a rope and says, tie it to the tree, and then tie it around yourself. And then Nesta uses her bow and arrow and sends the rope to Gwyn, and Gwyn sort of understands what the plan is, so she ties the rope around her waist while continuing to, like, limp across the bridge. The males are coming across the bridge, and
slowly, I guess, and without any more arrows.
Yeah, like, They're just meandering across it now at this point, even
like you do.
Even seeing like what the women are doing. Like, I'm sorry, if you see someone tying a rope to a tree and then tying something around your waist, I feel like you have a sneaky suspicion what's happening.
You'd turn around and get off the bridge.
Yes.
Or you'd grab onto the bridge.
Yes.
And try to climb out of it.
You would think. However.
Okay. They're big dumb males.
Yeah. So Emery throws a sword at Nesta, and while on the bridge, Nesta, like, cuts it.
Mm-hmm.
However, Nesta wasn't tied to the rope. So, like, I don't understand why she couldn't have gone to the end of the bridge and cut it from land.
Yeah.
But anyway, she's not tied to the rope, so she has to just grab it with her hands. And, like, obviously the rope, like, tears up her hands a bit. But she nonetheless crawls up, and then she pulls Gwen after her. The males that were on the bridge obviously fall and die. And the rest of the group that hadn't yet crossed the bridge are calling them bitches, obviously. And this is, I appreciate this. Emery yells back to get something new to call them.
Yes. Which is like, I don't know. I'm kind of, I appreciate it in a way, but then I'm also like, didn't Aelin say the same thing? Doesn't Bryce say the same thing? Like, it's like,
we've heard it now, yeah.
I get it, but
yeah. So they do a little bit of triage now. The arrow is still in Gwen's leg. They have to, like, pull it out. So they, like, do that thing where you crack the end off and then you pull it out the other side. And they have to bind her leg with a spare shirt that they took off a dead person. But, like, obviously she's limping, so they have to, like, carry her between them and limp towards Ramiel. They spend the night in a tree. There's no food. The next day, they hobble along. They don't really encounter anyone, and they make it to the foot of the mountain. So, I think that's, like, what? So that was day 4. Spend the night in the tree. So this is day 5?
Yes. Seems like.
So the women discuss whether they should even try to climb the mountain. Apparently they've already made history being there. Only like
well, they're Aristian now because they made it to the base. So,
but only 12 people in the history of Valerians have made it to the base of the mountain. Only 12.
I don't understand. Because, like, they weren't walking to the mountain this whole time.
I know.
They've slept. Like, I don't understand how nobody else has.
But I guess maybe they don't know. Maybe other people have made it to the mountain and they're just not aware and we're not aware.
Maybe everyone was killed.
Maybe.
I could see, like, the year that you make it, maybe you just kill everybody else. So only a few people make it because they kill everybody else.
Could be.
Sure.
So they're sort of thinking of Gwen in this moment because obviously Gwen with an arrow through the leg, sort of a injury, like she can't climb a mountain.
No.
But Gwen is mad. She doesn't want to have come all this way to give up. And like she's done hiding. But like, can I just say, easy for her to say, the other two have to carry her.
Yeah.
Right? Like
yeah.
And sort of Nesta reminds her, like, we're down to the last of our water. We haven't eaten in days. And Emery's like, it's called the breaking for a reason. Mm-hmm. But Gwen reminds them that she's been broken before. And now we get Gwen's story. Her origin story. So we already know that she is, what, a quarter nymph? Or half nymph?
Half? No, her mother was half, was she? Maybe she's
so.
a quarter.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. And it's a quarter nymph and grew up in the, in a temple, thank you.
Charades.
So she tells them that she was raped by a commander from Highburn. and that he had his soldiers hold her down, and apparently he laughed the entire time.
Really?
Yeah. And she tells them that Hybern attacked the temple at night, and they just woke up to screaming. And her twin, Ketrin, was the strong one who took care of Gwyn after their mother died. And I guess they shared a room, or even if they didn't, they were with each other, awake, and told Gwyn to go to the children's dorm to save the children while she went to see what she could do at the temple itself with all the other priestesses. So she gathered up the children and managed to get them out through a trapdoor in the catacombs, but the trapdoor is in the kitchen. But she couldn't go down through the trapdoor with them because somebody had to hide the trapdoor so that the soldiers wouldn't follow the children down into the catacombs and slaughter them all anyway. So she had to hide the door. So she put a rug over it and she moved a table over the floor. So that time she spent hiding the door meant that obviously the soldiers found her.
Yeah.
Her sister was captured, and I guess they recognized a resemblance between them, even though they're fraternal twins, but like I guess still enough of a resemblance that they knew.
Yeah. And like a smell too.
Oh,
I
yeah,
guess.
yeah. But the soldiers disgustingly wanted the children, specifically the girls.
Of course.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, so the commander figured out that they were sisters because of their scents and demanded to know where the children were, or he would kill Ketrin. But she didn't tell him. So they beheaded her sister right there, along with two other priestesses. And the commander sort of told the soldiers to, quote-unquote, go to work on the rest of them, a.k.a. rape them. And he would go for Gwyn. She did spit in his face before he raped her, but also took her virginity. So that was like an extra level of degradation, we'll say. Like the fact, not only did he rape her, but it was the first time she'd ever had penetrative sex.
Yeah.
So when he was done, he actually ordered 3 other soldiers to keep it going until she revealed where the kids were. So, like, the plan was for the 3 of them to continuously rape her until she, like, as a form of torture, until she told them where the kids were.
Yeah.
And Asriel showed up then, before the other 3 had the chance to go at her. Asriel showed up and rescued her. So this is sort of where I think the idolatry comes from. He legit saved her from further assault.
Yeah.
So she went to live in the library because she literally could not bear to see the kitchen where she was raped and her sister was killed, and seeing her sister's grave, knowing that she failed her. So even though she rescued and saved all of those children, she feels like she failed her sister because she kept quiet.
But I don't, like, obviously she can be grieving and sad and all that, but I don't know, like, what else she could have done. Like, if she gave up all the children, that also would have been bad.
Yeah. And, like, so, and I think we both know that, like, even if she had given up the children, they still would have raped her, still would have probably killed them all, like, you know.
Yeah. I feel like she has a lot of self-hatred, too, and she was like, oh, when they find out what I did, they're gonna hate me. Yeah. But I'm like, she was a hero.
Yeah.
Objectively, in this story, she's a hero. Yes, her sister was unfortunately killed, but, like, she's the hero of the story. But she's like, I don't deserve to wear the priestess's stone and shit. And I'm like,
don't you?
Yeah, like, I don't know. And obviously trauma fucks you up. But I just don't see how she could not realize that, like, she saved all those children.
Yeah. I don't know either. But anyway, so she apparently said, like, when she got to the library, she could barely speak until Clotho signed her up to work for Meryl. And she finally started singing again and finding purpose and meeting Nesta. Because, like, this wasn't actually that long ago. Like, maybe, like a year and a half, 2 years? Like, meeting Nesta sort of helped her find sort of joy again. And she knew, actually, that her sister would have signed up for training. So that's why she signed up for training, sort of to honor her sister. But she...
I think...
No,
sorry.
Go ahead.
I think she has a lot of survivor's guilt because she's like, her sister was the better one.
Yeah.
So I think that's her, like, big issue now. But I just don't... I guess I don't... Like, I understand that completely. Like, sure, I can understand why she feels like that, because she feels like her sister should have lived and she should have died. I just don't see how that makes her feel so unworthy. Like,
I don't know.
I thought there'd be something else, another layer of, like, she did give up the children. Like, I thought it was going to be that.
Right.
Like, if she gave up the children and then they killed her sister anyway.
Yeah.
Like, I thought it was going to be something like that. That would be like, oh, she shouldn't have given up the children. For the amount that she's, like, unworthy and hates herself. I don't know.
But, like, could it be that maybe it's partly because she let her sister dictate what she did, and, like, her sister went into the temple and sort of took care of, like, you know what I mean? Like, should she have volunteered to go to the temple instead? Something like that, you know what I mean? Like, her sister dictating what they did and sending her towards sort of the safer option.
Yeah.
Like, maybe that's part of it.
Maybe. I just find it interesting.
Yeah.
That she is also so self-loathing. And, like, I do obviously get that's the big part of it is that she thinks her sister should have lived and she shouldn't. I do understand that is a core belief that she has. But it just still surprises me based on this story.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. Because, like, she's not a bad person.
Yeah.
But she, you know, admits that she doesn't feel like she can wear the hood or the stone on her head because it's a sign of holiness. And she doesn't deserve to wear it because she doesn't feel holy.
Yeah.
Emery tells her story next. I guess we're having a sharing session. There's no rush.
Nope, shouldn't sleep. Shouldn't try to get up the mountain because apparently it's super easy.
Yeah. So her father, Emery's father, used to beat her mother and then beat Emery after her mother died. Apparently he once beat Emery so bad she was in bed for weeks, but he lied to everyone saying that she was just ill. He beat her mother so bad that that's how she died. And he actually made Emery dig her grave and told everyone that she died during a miscarriage.
Oy.
And, like, what really bothers Emery is that, like, everybody loved her dad and thought that he was amazing and charming and smart. And she was happy when he died. And, like, everyone expected her to be sad, but she wasn't. Mm-hmm. And apparently she can still feel his fists on her sometimes. And, like, he was super controlling. He never let her have any money. He controlled her food portions. And, like, apparently she still hears his voice in her head, which is why she came to training, because she knew he would have forbidden it, and she wants to get his voice out of her head. Because remember, he only died in the ACOSF war with Hybern.
Yeah.
So, even more recent.
Yeah.
And she knows that none of her training will bring back her mother or change that she used to hide while he beat her mother. But she wants to face the mountain and the breaking for her mother. And then Nesta tells her story. So, like, the thing that not bothers me, but, like, so we've heard Emery's full story. She was a victim in this for her entire life. We can objectively say that Gwyn was heroic and also a victim. Nesta's story is different, right? Like, yes, Nesta was a victim as well, but she also, I don't know, I feel like she was hateful.
Yeah.
At points. Like, you know what I mean? Like, letting Feyre do all of that when they were kids, being a jackass all the time, like, never letting her guard down. Yes, it was, like, yeah, not saying she didn't undergo trauma before she became Fae, and before she was kidnapped and put in the cauldron. I'm sure, yes, like, seeing your father beaten, your mother dying is traumatic, but I feel like the trauma that she sort of has allowed to fester happened after she was kidnapped. Like, the kidnapping, getting changed into a Fae against her will, seeing her father die, being in the war, like, all of that is sort of what has caused her to have the amount of self-loathing and the amount of hatred for herself that she has, and sort of the trauma that she carries. But, like,
yeah,
what's her excuse before all that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do, yeah. And, like, I get she was upset that they lost their fortune and that her father wasn't doing enough and that her mother had died. Like, yes, that is all
sad.
Awful stuff. Sad. Yeah, but that's why I was kind of like, I expected a bit more from Gwyn's story so that there was more...
You being a bit terrible.
More bonding over just because you did one thing that was bad, or just because you haven't always been quote-unquote good, doesn't mean that you're not lovable, doesn't mean that you're not, like, all of these things, that you can't be okay. Like, that's why I kind of just thought there would be something more to Gwyn's story. But yeah,
But even Emery's too, like, Emery's big problem and her big guilt thing, the thing that she hates herself for, is the fact that she hid when her mom was being beaten by her dad. Like, that is not a terrible thing. That is not something you should feel guilt for.
Yeah. And, yeah, I get what you're saying, because Nesta, like, there are things she did that she should feel guilty about. And, like, that's not saying she's a terrible person now, or that she can't, like, redeem herself, whatever. But she did do things that weren't great.
Yes.
So, yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, so she tells them every terrible thing she's done, every terrible thing she's even thought in her head. And when she finishes, her friends look at her with openness and understanding. And she understands then that they won't turn her away no matter what she does. Which I guess is good for her.
Yeah.
But to me, it's not equal. Like, these are two victim stories. And then we have one story where somebody does some terrible shit, but is also a victim.
Yeah.
So they decide they're going to climb the mountain anyway to prove that they can. So Cassian's POV, they follow Eris for 3 days. So, like, the stories are not happening concurrently because this is day 7 now. Because they watched the castle for 4 days. And now this is 3 days. So that's 7 days. So, like, shouldn't he be more, like, itchy to be like, shit, I gotta get back. It's 7 days. The ride is over. Let's go.
You would think.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So they assume there's a figure hunched over next to Eris, and they assume it's Briallen. He's not chained up or anything like that. But I think that's stupid, just to, like, anybody could hunch over. So there's...
Yeah. Also, if he's in the crown's thrall, of course he's not chained up. Why would he be chained up? He's not going to go anywhere.
Yep. So they follow them to a place that feels like the middle. It's not the middle, but it feels like, I guess it has the same sort of aura.
Yeah.
There are woods and a lake, and immediately I'm like, is this Koshi's lake? Like, is this where, what's-her-face, Vasa, like, has to live, like, Swan? I know she's not a swan, but I think of Swan Lake. To me, it's the same.
I know what you mean.
So they land, because they've flown this whole time, so they land to follow them on foot, when Eris sneaks up on Cassian and holds a dagger to his ribs. Great.
Cool.
So, back to Nesta again. Obviously climbing is super duper hard. They're really struggling. They don't see anyone else, though. And they actually make it 2/3 of the way up. Gwen's leg is bleeding again, and Emery fell and twisted her ankle, so both of them are limping, and they only have 4 hours until sunrise, and it would be over, like, the whole thing. So, like, they only had 4 hours to sort of make it to the top. Yeah. And then they look down and see Bellius and 6 other dudes climbing the mountain, and they need to keep going, so she essentially tells Gwen to climb on her back, because she knows that Gwen can't fight. So the only hope they have is to just, like, try and reach the top before the guys reach them.
Yeah.
And she realizes now that this is why she did the stairs so many times. It was for this moment. And, like, I'm sorry, I don't care who you are. If you have a person on your back, like, I put my 9-year-old on my back sometimes and carry her up the stairs, and obviously I'm not nearly in the same shape, but still, like, it's having someone on your back, as even a very small person, it gets tiring very quickly. So, like, are there stairs on the mountain? Like,
no,
I don't understand how, like, are they just, like, scaling it like rock climbing? Like, I don't get the makeup of this mountain.
Well, and because they've already talked about, like, this pass is hard. It's the hardest. It's the breaking. This is, like...
But, like, I'm wondering...
Impossible.
But, like, I'm wondering if there's, like, a makeshift path.
I would assume that there is a path, but I would also assume that there's no stairs on the path, that it's just, like, climbing up a steep mountain.
Okay.
But,
yeah, okay.
Don't know.
So we go back to Cassian's point of view very, very quickly. They tell Eris essentially, so, like, Eris is, like, holding him hostage pretty much with a dagger, tells Eris, Cass is like, dude, you're a prick. And Eris says he's surprised Rhys was so trusting. Like, he didn't even, like, look into his mind for anything. And Cassian tells him that he's a dead man walking. Which makes Eris mention the business with the Morrigan. And Eris never says Morrigan. He never calls her by her full name. So Cass realizes that Briallen is controlling him, so he tells her to come out and play.
Yeah.
Back to Nesta. They make it past the stone archway that shows the end of the pass of Annalius. And Nesta realizes that the males are climbing too fast. And if they keep going, the men will reach them before they make it to the summit. And, like, she is so tired, she falls and takes Gwen with her. And she's just too exhausted to carry Gwen anymore. So she suggests that they go on while she gives them time. So she's gonna pull an Annalius and make it so, like, you shall not pass to the 6 dudes, to give Gwen and Emery time to get to the top.
Yeah.
Obviously, Gwen refuses to leave and wants to face it with her together. And she gets irate about it, like, about not leaving her. So Nesta hugs her, but then pinches her in just the right spot to knock her out. I guess Cass sort of showed it to her before.
Must have.
Ages ago. Emery is, I guess, the, more practical of the two, like, less ruled by emotion, and says that she'll carry her as far as she can. So, like, she has to carry a knocked out Gwen with a sprained ankle. Because that...
Up this path that people can't even climb up on their own.
Well, I guess they've reached the end of that path, so I'm assuming it's not going to be as difficult.
Oh, okay. Sure.
And Nesta just says, consider it repayment of a debt for just being her friend. And Emery puts Gwyn on her back then and just starts to climb the last little bit. Nesta does some mind stilling to calm her down and prepare for the fight. Mm-hmm. Back to Cassian again. They follow Brialyn to the lake. And when they finally make it there, Brialyn takes down her hood and she isn't even there. The whole thing was an illusion, and a shadow forms on the lake, and sure enough, it's Koshi. Koshi, whatever.
Yeah.
Coach dude.
So,
fair. This was all a ruse. So, go back to Nesta again. So she drank the last of her water, and she draws a line in the sand, and she's like, I'm not going to let these dudes cross this line. And Bellius approaches, and he actually sends his 6 warriors first through the bottleneck, because I guess she is on one side of this stone gate showing the end of the pass. So she's like, they're not crossing through here. So Bellius sends his warriors through there first to try and tire her out, weaken her. Mm-hmm. So she goes for it. She uses mind stilling. And she wonders what she could do if she actually had ataraxia, the big sword that she made. And she reveals that ataraxia is the word for inner peace. I don't remember what language, though.
It was the old Fae language, isn't it? Hasn't been used in 15,000 years or whatever. So how does she know it? I guess she just found it.
Okay. Which I guess is just sort of, that's why, remember, the guy laughed?
Yeah, at the
name, ataraxia. He was like, ha ha ha, because I guess it's weird for a sword to be named Peace.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Her sword.
Yeah, her sword, her rules.
Yeah.
So back to Cassian again. There's jumping all over the place. Koshi reveals that he spent months planning for this, and they fell for it hook, line, and sinker. Az manages to grab Eris and fly out of there, but Cassian, his wings are frozen. I guess, I don't know if Brialyn managed to put her in his thrall.
Yeah, I don't really know how it happens.
Yeah, so he can't move, but Azriel manages to get away and takes Eris with him. Mm-hmm. So Brialyn then finally walks out, really being there, and she tells Cassian she has need of him, and tells Koshi to winnow them, and he tells them to tell his Vasa that he's waiting, and sends Brialyn and Cass somewhere, but we don't know where.
I don't get why they were like, haha, it's not Brialyn, and then 5 seconds later she just walks out anyway.
Yeah, I know.
I'm like, why that trick? It didn't matter. It was pointless. Yes. Okay, cool.
yes it is, but it's fine. So back to Nesta's point of view again. She's exhausted, but she's managed to kill all the males, and Bellius is the only one left. He, of course, calls them whores, and that they disgrace the right, being women.
Of course.
And then a light is emitted from the top, and Nesta is relaxes because Emery and Gwyn made it. And Nesta taunts him that he didn't win, but he says he didn't want to win. He just wants this, and then he attacks her.
Yeah.
And
you're like, so none of Emery's family have ever made it to the mountain, and it's a big thing with their family. Yeah. But then he's just been under the control of Brialyn this whole time, so he doesn't even care, which is just we get that he's also evil because they're all evil, but it's I do feel a bit bad for him that his entire life he's working for this moment, and then they're you're not even there for it. You don't even...
Yeah. So Nesta is like, feels better knowing that Emery and Gwyn are safe. And she knows she really only has to hold out for a few minutes until dawn, when the whole thing is over, and then presumably they all get winnowed away.
I guess.
So, like, she only has to hold out for a few minutes, but she's, like, so tired. She literally spent the last, like, day carrying somebody else up a mountain, and, like, Bellius is super fresh. So a storm starts during their fight, and, like, she gets distracted, and he disarms both her sword and shield very easily, because, again, he has so many years of training. She does not.
Yep.
And he slices her arms and legs, but then he's like, I want to kill you with my bare hands. So, like...
Of course.
Yeah.
If he had just chopped her head off,
it would have been too easy.
Yeah.
And she realizes that she wants to live happily with... ... She won't admit it. So she, like, gets back up and gets to a stance to fight him, and he laughs and taunts her, and she tells him she can beat him because her mate taught her well. So this is sort of her, like, acknowledging that Cass is her mate, and sort of the whole reason they fought earlier. She didn't want to admit it. She didn't want to say the word because it means her humanity is gone, but this is her admitting it, that Cass is her mate. And using the word mate gave her renewed energy. Like, I wonder if that's just like a mind thing or if it's actually a magic thing.
It must be. It must be a mind thing. It must be like, fuck, I need to live.
Yeah. So, like, he toys with her and he wears her down until she's on the ground. So, like, all this bullshit of, like, I'm gonna beat you because my mate taught me well was all just nothing. Like, he bests her quite easily in this fight. And he's coming for her. She's alone. And she's like, this nobody is going to kill her. Like, she sort of wanted her death to be more, like, epic. And she's got, like, nothing left in the tank. And all of a sudden, Bellius's throat is slit. And Cassian is there! He saved her. And for a split second, we're like, yay! Because he helps her up and brings her to him. But then we remember where we left him last time. And he then puts a dagger to Nesta's throat. So he is indeed in Briallen's thrall. And we're in his point of view for a little bit. He's screaming in his head because he doesn't want to do this. And he's trying to fight the thrall, but he can't. And he wants Nesta to fight him back. But she obviously doesn't because she doesn't want to hurt him.
Yeah.
And Briallen is there and tells Nesta that Cassian won't obey her because he belongs to Briallen now.
Of course.
And she does her villain monologue that she orchestrated the whole thing. Her being kidnapped for the rite wasn't the plan. It was to kidnap Emery and have Nesta come and save her. But because Nesta and Gwyn went to Emery's house, they just took all of them, which I think was stupid.
I think it's, like, this plan doesn't make any sense. Like, Nesta knew that nobody could come save her because they'd all die. So we're saying that she would have risked Emery's life.
Yeah. By
saving her. And, like I don't get this
I think Briallen just doesn't understand the right.
Oh, maybe. Okay.
That's my interpretation.
That makes me feel better.
Right? Like, I'm assuming that Briallen just doesn't understand how it works.
That makes sense.
She also admits that she got info from Bellius and has been controlling him. And she also orchestrated putting weapons in the rite. And she wants the trove, obviously. And knows that the only way Nesta would get it for her is if Cassian is in danger. but she says she will not summon them. So even with Cassian there being under her thrall, it's not enough for her to summon them. And she can tell that Cassian is fighting the crown's, like, influence, but he cannot break free. So Briallyn orders him to attack Nesta and kill her, and she just lets him. And she...
It's funny, though, because, like, we know that he won't be able to kill her. Like, based on other books in this, I'm assuming that even if he does attack her, like, he won't be able to do the landing blow. Like, he won't be able to kill her. I don't think. And I know it's not explicitly said, but, like, in Throne of Glass, spoiler, but in Empire of Storms, when she's controlled by a god, Rowan jumps in front of her, and she has to, like, move her hand to save him. So she takes her mind back. So I don't think that he actually would have killed her completely.
Well, so we're gonna see that she's, like, showing love and forgiveness on her face for him, sort of to, like, make him understand that because she knows he's inside and, like, witnessing all of this happen but unable to prevent it. So she shows, like, love and forgiveness to be like, I know this isn't your fault. I don't want you to blame yourself for this. Even though we all know he would.
Yeah. She's like, it's okay, you can kill me.
So he fights for control, and he manages to turn the dagger on himself instead, and stabs himself as the sun rises and Nesta's magic returns. So, she feels her magic, and she lets it explode, and she just jumps onto Briallyn and turns her into ashes.
What a climax.
Yeah, it was very anticlimactic. It was like the big bad of the whole book, and she's gone just in seconds. Yeah, from Nesta's magic. Like,
it felt odd. I was like, wait, why we didn't even need her.
Yeah.
We could have just had the Illyrians be angry that these women did the qualifier, throw them into the right because they were mad about it, and all of this happened. Like, we didn't need her at all.
Nope.
Okay.
But then, so she goes to Cass because she's worried that he's, like, dead from stabbing himself. But I don't, I feel like I might have written this wrong because it turns out he didn't stab himself at all.
I kind of brushed past
or
that part.
like I'm honestly second guessing myself. Did I interpret it wrong, and did her magic just automatically heal him?
Oh, maybe. Because, I remember him being like, I just figured I'd get out of the way so you could do that.
So I'm like,
Did he just pretend to stab himself and fall over? So that, because he knew she was going to use her magic? Like, I don't know.
I'm so confused about it. Anyway, so she admits that he's her mate, and they have a lovely kiss joining them together, and, like, she's just happy that he's okay. So after, I guess, like, as soon as the sun is up, as a more winnow to the mountain, and they say Eris is safe, they have the dagger in their possession, but there's a problem. It's Feyre.
I don't think this was necessary at this exact moment.
I know, everything is happening in one day, and, like, didn't it just say that she still had 2 months to go? So she's in labor 2 months early, which is, like, unheard of.
Yeah.
Anyway, besides the point. So they get to the river house. Like, they all, like, they can't even process everything that they've done. They just immediately all go to the river house to Feyre's, like birthing room, I guess.
How is Nesta even alive? Like, she hasn't eaten in days. She just battled a bajillion people. Like, how is she even surviving at this moment?
I don't know.
Okay.
Anyway, so Feyre's been bleeding. And Madja says she's lost too much blood. I guess they've never heard of a transfusion.
No.
And she's tried turning the baby, but he's stuck in the birth canal, obviously, because her canal is not made for a winged baby.
Yes.
I said winged.
I liked it.
We're doing Romeo and Juliet in school right now, so like, and some of the ED words are like that. So I'm in ed mode.
I like it.
Anyway, then Madge is like, oh, if we try to do a C-section, she'll lose even more blood, and they'll risk the baby since she's only 7 months along.
But like, if you don't,
so like
they're both gonna die.
I don't understand. So like, she's turning the baby in the birth canal. Like, so obviously the baby is ready to, like, wants to come out. So I don't understand how it's different to cut the baby out versus have it come out naturally. Like, the baby's still going to be 2 months early. Actually, I have no idea how long. Like,
Faye gestate.
Yeah. But Feyre, Feyre is conscious and says, like, do it. Like, get the baby out. So they cut it out. He's obviously not breathing. I know. I know.
Like, it doesn't make any sense. Okay, sorry. Continue.
It's fine. He's not breathing. Feyre is losing more blood than they can heal. Can they not just, like, put their hand across the incision and, like, close it?
Yeah.
Anyway, Rhys then starts screaming as if his soul is being shredded. And, like, I don't know if this is him, like, starting to die because of the bargain, or if this is just him being upset that his mate is dying and his baby is not alive. Like, I don't get this screaming as if his soul is being shredded. Like, I don't understand why he's screaming.
Yeah.
But, and, like, Asriel is, like, holding Rhys back, so Magic can try and, like, save Feyre, but Nesta can, like, feel death hovering as a shadow nearby. So, like, she sort of knows, like, death is coming. And Nesta doesn't want Feyre to die.
Oh, no.
Not when Feyre did so much to save her and has done so much for her. So, she uses the magic that she had let loose on Ramiel. Then we go to Cassian's POV, so, like, he's obviously devastated, but he looks and sees Nesta wearing the Dread Trove. She's wearing all three. And she plucks the last string of the harp, which she finally understands is time, just as Feyre takes her last breath. So, like, right when Feyre is, like, about to die, she plucks the last string, sort of stopping time. And she makes the mask halt the death surrounding Rhys and the baby too. And she has a conversation with we don't know who about how she wants to feel and live and experience all of this, the good and the bad. So, like, when the bad being, like, Feyre's death and Rhys's death and the baby's death, like, I don't know. And she holds Feyre's hand and tells Feyre that she loves her, something she's never said to another person before.
Wild.
Which is, yes, wild. And she puts her body over Feyre's as the harp starts to vibrate and time restarts. And she tells the cauldron, like, I guess she's having a conversation with the cauldron, aka the mother, that if she shows her how to save Feyre, Rhys, and the baby, she'll give back all the power she took. And she reiterates, she, like, says it, I'll give it all back, I'll give it all back. And then a soft hand brushes her cheek. And when time restarts, they just watch, like, light, like, power flow from Nesta towards Feyre. And some floats towards the baby. And she just keeps chanting, I give it back, I give it back, I give it back, over and over and over. And then all of a sudden, the mask and crown fall off her head. And ink flows over her back. So she made a bargain with the cauldron. And Feyre is awake again and tells her she loves her too. So I guess she heard her say she loved her. And she is completely healed. And then the baby starts crying, indicating that the baby is also alive. Crying is good.
Yeah.
So, do you have anything you want to say? Because I know you have feelings about this.
It just all happened very quickly.
Yes.
All of this all happened the same day. Sure, cool. I don't know, I don't mind this so much, other than I do hate the trope of women giving up all of their power. I am never okay with that. I get in this situation, Nesta stole it. So, like, sure. Giving... And it seems like she gave like, most of it back. But she still probably has some. But I'm like, shouldn't she still have the powers that normal Fae have? Like, should she be able to develop those ones now, maybe?
Well, Amren doesn't.
Yeah, so I don't know. I hate that trope. I hate that she gave it all up. The entire birth thing of, like, the baby's in the birth canal, but then we're gonna do a C-section. I'm like, did they just chop Feyre in half to get to the baby? Like, it doesn't make any sense. None of it makes sense.
That is actually quite common. A friend, like, I've known people where babies have gotten stuck in the birth canal and unable to come out, so that is the alternate scenario, is doing a C-section.
Yeah.
So, like...
Which...
Fine.
But then being like, we can't do C-sections because everybody dies.
Yeah. I don't see how, if you have magic healing, I don't see how a regular old C-section, like, if we can do it with stitches, you should be able to do it with magic.
Yeah, especially since Feyre herself has healing powers.
Yeah. Anyway.
I just, I don't know.
Yeah.
Sure.
It happens so much in books like these, where the woman gives up her awesome power. Mm-hmm. And I don't like it. Like, why can't the badass powerful female stay a badass powerful female?
Yep.
Right?
Agreed.
Like, it happened with Amren.
Yep.
Happens in other SJM novels.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember it has happened in other books as well. I just forget which books. I should have written it down because I remember thinking about it as I read them, being like, oh, of course, the woman is losing her power again. Yeah. So, like, didn't it happen in Shadow and Bone?
Yes.
It happened in Shadow and Bone.
It's such a common thing, and I'm like, why are we taking power away from women? Mm-hmm. Especially as female authors. Like, why do we need to do that? Yeah.
It just, like, there's so much to be said for female empowerment and, like, trying to lift women up. I agree with you. I don't understand, like, why that's a message. Why do we need this to be a message to all the females reading these books? Like I said before, it's like not 100% readership is female. 100%. I know there are males or people that identify more masculine that are reading these novels. Like people that don't identify as females reading these novels. I get it. However, we could say that over 50% of the readership of this type of book is female, so why are you taking power away from the women when it is women that are reading this? It's like almost it is ingraining it into our heads that we do not deserve to be powerful or that we have to give up our power to be happy, and I don't think that's the right message to send.
Yeah, I think an issue that I also think, like, I don't think I've ever read a book where a male has sacrificed his power.
No.
For, like, the greater good or for somebody else. Like, ever.
Oh, I remember another book that it happens at, but I can't really talk about it because it's a spoiler.
Oh. Like, in Sarah J. Maas's other series, there is a male who gives up some power.
Yes.
But that is the only example I can think of where a male is willingly giving up their power for someone or something.
Yeah. But yet, it happens to women all the time.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm just tired of it.
Same.
Like, I don't even know what else to say about it other than I'm tired of it and I think it sends a bad message.
Yeah. Anyway,
I'm gonna move on. It's a depressing note to leave off at the end of our book, actually.
Yeah, and it is. That's really it.
Anyway, so Rhys, like, loves on Feyre and the baby for a hot minute before, like, turning to Nesta and bowing before her and saying thank you. And, like, he's on the floor, like, on his knees thanking her. So she gets down on the floor with him and hugs him, which also sort of, like, I then don't understand his reaction because, like, we know that he's in Crescent City 3 because we read Crescent City 2 in the end.
Yeah.
So he is in Crescent City 3, and, like, he's sort of a dick to Nesta, and I don't really understand, like, you know what I mean? Like, for this moment, like, sort of the moment where their relationship could start to heal, I don't, like, she did a lot to keep Feyre and the baby alive, so I feel like he should give her more grace than he does.
Yes, and shouldn't there have been some healing between then and now?
Yeah.
Like, even more than just this moment?
Yeah,
it is odd. I don't really get it.
Anyways, after the hubbub, Gwyn and Emery are actually at the river house, and they're, like, waiting, and I guess we could say they're healed. And Nesta reunites with them. Gwyn is obviously pissed that she, like, knocked her out to send her home. But they plan on keeping what happened on the mountain a secret. Since obviously Cass would be executed if people found out he was there. But even though he was under Briellen's thrall, he would still be killed. And really the only people that know he was there was Nesta and him and the inner circle. So they're just not going to tell anybody.
Yeah.
So Gwyn and Emery, like, they understand now that they get the title Corinthian, but they said, we're happy to just be Valkyries. And they can't wait to see how angry the Illyrians are going to get at them, the two of them winning. They're excited. So later on, Feyre tells everyone that their baby's name is Nyx. And obviously, he's beautiful. Nyx is a very common, like, it's a very common name for, like, night. Like, related to night and darkness. So they all take turns holding him because he's a brand new little baby with wings.
Cute.
Nesta and Cassian take this moment then to have a chat. And she tells him that her power is mostly gone, but a little bit is left. And Cassian thinks, like, the mother allowed her to keep a little bit. And she actually used the power to change herself so that her birth canal can push out an Illyrian baby. Which, the Cauldron did it for Feyre. Like, changed her birth canal so she can push out an Illyrian baby. So Nesta has done this for herself as well. A big reason why a lot of people assume that Elaine and Az are not endgame is because she did not do that for Elaine. So the assumption is, like, that's the sort of the argument that a lot of people make for why Elaine and Azriel won't be together is because of this. However, if Azriel gets with Gwyn, which is sort of the ulterior pairing, it's not done for her either, so I don't know.
That's interesting.
I don't know what they'll do.
True. But that it is a really big, like, I don't know, if it was a possibility for Elaine to be with Az. And, like, even in this book, Nesta kind of sees that there's, like, maybe something there, but she doesn't think, hey, I should redo her birthing canal too.
So Cass obviously feels bad that she gave her power up and, like, thinks like she could have ruled the world with it. But she said she doesn't want to rule the world. She just wants him. Why can't she want both? Why can't she have both? But
because she's a woman, just a lowly woman.
She does say, though, she does want an extremely ornate mating ceremony because, of course, all women want a super fancy, big, ornate wedding. Ugh. Yeah. Anyway, it's fine. So he is not super keen on having a big, fancy, ornate mating ceremony. So she stole a stale piece of shortbread from the birthing chamber and offers it to him because offering food is tradition. But he sort of says, like, how about we do an in-between? Because she's like, you don't want a big fancy ceremony? Fine. Here's a stale cookie. And he's like, how about we have something in between this?
No, nothing's in between.
So, no. She tells him that she loves him, and that's it. I don't even think he tells her he loves her back. It's fine.
Fair.
2 days later, Cass has to meet up with Eris to check on him in the Hewn City. So this is sort of where we're going, why I sort of mentioned that Eris's story might be next, or like Moore's story.
Yeah.
So Cass goes to check up with Eris, and they want to know what story he told Baron about like his absence and everything that happened. And he said it was kind of the truth. He did leave out a little bit. But Baron actually tortured it out of him. So, like, they were all sort of like, what? Your dad tortured you? And he's like, yeah, my dad's an asshole.
Like, you guys all knew this. Why are you surprised? It's like...
So, sad. So, he told his dad that they rescued him, like, Az and Cass. But he sort of spins it in that the reason why Azriel rescued him is because Az's spies told them that an asset was kidnapped. They didn't realize it was Eris. So they're sort of spinning it in that, like, Baron's like, well, why would they rescue you? Because, like, you're not allies. But him being like, well, they didn't know it was me. So it is smart. And the fact that he can spin that lie while being tortured, like, that's something. Yeah. So Cassian sort of pities him that he has to live and be raised by his asshole of a father. And, like, his brothers, too, are probably equally assholey.
Yeah, seems like.
And he asks again what happened with Moore. And Eris, again, evades. He says he doesn't want to explain his actions to him. And they have more pressing concerns, like Kochi and Baron. So I think the assumption is that Baron is going to team up with Kochi now, since Briellen is dead. And so Cass tells Eris. So that's sort of why I think that, because we're getting, I think this is the third time now that Eris has been asked about what really happened with Moore. And he's like, none of your business. I'm not telling you. Ask Moore. Yeah. So, like, this is why I sort of feel like, because remember you said that Sarah J. Maas said, if you read to the end of this book, you know whose story is next. This is sort of why I think it's going to be more in Eris' story. Because this is sort of our last, like, it's the last thing that we're left hanging with. Like, everything else is just, like, sort of clue up in a nice way. Yeah. So this is why I think it's going to be more Eris next. But anyway. Not that they're going to be together, but...
No. I get it.
You know. Yeah. Anyway, so Cassian tells Eris that he grew up surrounded by monsters. Eris, I guess. And he actually feels for him, like, sort of feels bad for him. And he thinks he actually might be a nice male, like a good male deep down. But he's too much of a coward to actually act like one. And sort of leaves him with that little nugget. And like, fair point. Yeah. So, springtime comes to Valaris, and Feyre takes little Nyx walking around the city a whole lot. After the rite, the women keep training. Gwyn does stay in the library. She doesn't, like, this event hasn't made her want to, like, leave the library a whole bunch. But she is going to come to Nesta's mating ceremony, which is happening in 3 days. It is small, but ornate, paid for by Rhys, because he couldn't stop buying her things to thank her for saving everyone's life. But she just said, like, she made him stop with this, like, okay, pay for my mating ceremony and then stop. Yeah. He also, like, deeded her the House of Wind with the caveat that they still use it for formal occasions, and also with the caveat that the priestesses would still own the library, and, like, all the same rules of the library would apply. Which obviously works for Nesta. She's not going to take the library from the priestesses at all.
Oh my god, no.
Feyre painted a picture of Nesta holding the line at the Pass of Nalius. I don't know how she got the, like, I don't know, because normally she looks into other people's heads for the image, but she doesn't have anybody to look into for this, so I think she's just using her imagination.
I think Nesta says that she showed Reese some of what happened, and then Reese must have showed.
But it would be coming from Nesta's point of view, so how would she see herself? Anyway, so she actually hangs the painting at the river house in between the portrait she did of herself and the portrait of Elaine. So it's the three sisters, and that made Nesta cry, and her and Feyre hug, and, like, everything's hunky-dory. So, one day, her, Feyre, and Elaine, and little Nyx walk to their father's grave to introduce Nyx to him. And then they give Nesta some time alone, and she promises that she would try and live with love in her heart, and be worthy of the love he had for her. And I'm like, what happened to hating him? Like, he was still a terrible father to you. Like,
yeah.
Have you forgiven him for everything? Anyway, I just can't. So she thanks her father, and then she hears wings flying above and knows that Cassian is flying overhead to protect them and keep them safe. So she blows him a kiss, and she heads back down the hill to meet her sisters with light in her heart and quick, easy steps. And that is the end. So,
yeah.
It's
a good one.
Yeah, it was definitely a journey.
Yeah.
I loved the book. It was a book that you can't put down, very action-packed. I do think there are things that could have improved upon. I wish that the story had gone in a different way for some things. As we've said, did find the ending sort of anticlimactic, the whole thing with Brielle, like, I don't know if it was supposed to be because she's, like, a measly human and, like, not worth fighting because of, like, the rest of them. But it just sort of seemed like they were gearing up to make her this, like, sort of this, like, enemy. And then it was like, psych, she's not actually bad. Like, not that she's not bad. She was bad, but, like, she's not actually hard to defeat.
Yeah, and it kind of, to me, just is another example of a not as well written evil. Like, the reason she's evil is because Nesta made her old by pissing off the cauldron. Like, that is her entire being.
Yeah.
It's just not enough. It's not enough for me. It's not a good enough, like, I don't know. I need more in my villains.
Yeah.
I just think she didn't have to be in this book at all.
True, yeah, no.
It's interesting. There's just so much going on, and I get that there was so many loose ends after the last book. Like, I get there were still some loose ends. She's trying to, like, keep everything up in the air, do so much. There needs to be a story in the next book, so she couldn't kill off Kochi. Even though it does kind of annoy me that it's like, the male villain lives, and you're like, I guess. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
Anyway, I guess I feel like we're like a little bit of a down. This is like a little bit of a downer to leave off instead of like ooh, that book was great. Like, it was, but like, I feel like it's also reinforcing a lot of stereotypes that we're unhappy with.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate.
Yep. Yeah. Mostly her having to give away her power. I just hate that. Hate.
Yeah.
But, yeah, she does still have some. And, like, it's probably better for her. And, like, this, I will say, this is maybe the only time that it makes sense that she gave back her power. And if it wasn't such a theme in SJM books, and if it wasn't such a theme against all literature of women having to give up all of their power, I wouldn't mind so much. Because Nesta doesn't like her power. She's afraid of it. She doesn't really want it. So if she wants to give it up, she should be able to. Like, I get that. But, yeah. So I don't hate it as much as another series that SJM wrote.
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe it'll be better for Nesta in the long run.
Maybe.
So yeah, we are done this series now.
Yeah. We just have to,
it's wild.
Just have to wait for, like, more books to come out before we can do any more with it.
Yeah, it's wild. Wild, wild. Hopefully we'll hear something sooner than later about when the next book is coming out.
I think we can safely say it's not gonna be this year.
Oh my god, no. I don't think it's gonna be this
2025 is when it's gonna happen.
Yeah, I'm hoping early so that it's not like if it's not early, then it's not going to be until 2027 that we get her next book.
Holy shit. It's so far away.
I'm hoping she's at least once a year, but we'll see. We don't know. Anyway. Speculation. But yeah, I guess that's it for this book, and that's it for this week. So, if you want to get in touch with us and share your thoughts on anything you heard in our episode, or if you have any book suggestions, please reach out to us by email at coffeeandcoread@gmail.com or on Instagram or Facebook at coffeeandcoread and coffee.coread on TikTok.
So, next week we'll be reading a new book. We are going to actually attempt The Cruel Prince, chapters 1 to 10. So, make sure to follow along. And if you're enjoying our chats, don't forget to follow, rate, and review wherever you get our content. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you on the next page.